What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Pavalli coming at you with the one, the only, the indelible, the legendary, the certified fantabulous co-host of the Hardwood Knocks podcast, Mr. Grant Hughes. It's awards check-in time. Second to last time we'll be doing awards. The next time we do it, we will be making our final awards picks. And when we do it, here's some more incentives to join our Discord. We want our listeners to come up with categories that don't exist. We will pick our favorite ones and then give our ballots for those awards categories. They could be ridiculous, but we would encourage nominations for like actual award categories that you would maybe like to see. A popular one has been most improved team, something like that, or most entertaining team or something. So keep that in your minds. Go join our Discord if you haven't yet. And if you're watching this right now and haven't subscribed, I don't know what you're doing. Post haste, remedy that. Grant, how are we doing before we cannonball into these awards?
I would just add, like, for people submitting categories, it can be things like most improved team, but I think we would also appreciate weirder ones. However you want, whatever direction you want to take that, like best wrong-footed floater. Like, we'll have to research that, of course.
Hairiest shoulders.
Like, sure. Yeah. You get nothing's out of bounds. I wanted to ask you before we start. Do you feel like, because this is now the third, because this might be the fourth time, because we did like preseason awards, I think, and then we did quarter, half. This is the 3/4 mark. Is this getting easier for you or harder?
It's actually getting harder, because you would think as players get eliminated from eligibility that it opens up spots for these guys, but you get to a point, and I feel like we reached it definitely with the last wave of injuries between Kyrie, AD, Wembanyama, Fox. Not that I don't even know if he would have been a pick, but like him not being eligible anymore. Luka hasn't been eligible for a while. And you're also kind of in the back of your mind sitting here wondering, okay, like LeBron's going to return while he's still eligible, right? So it makes me think more. And then I feel like I'm giving it to more undeserved, because like at the top, it's normally easier. And now it's like, oh no, building first team all NBA was hellfire for me.
Yeah. I think it's been harder to part for all those reasons. And also because these are just getting closer to it's so much easier to say Darius Garland deserves X halfway through the season or a quarter of the way through the season. And then you get down towards the end and it's like, these are getting closer to the official picks, whatever official means for us. But it's like, this kind of needs to be right. Or I feel that way, and the impending finality of the picks feels like it makes me more concerned about choosing the wrong guy. So I like agonize over it a little more the farther we get, even with like just some options being stripped away. So in theory, some tough decisions we're saved from those. But all that means is at the back end of these ballots, like for all NBA teams, it's like you have a lot of really similar level guys that you have to choose between, and that makes it harder too.
Yeah, and so I have two questions for you on that. One, well, this is more of a note from the both of us. So we're doing this uniform where we're making our picks for these awards. So these are not predictions of who we think will actually win or who people are going to vote for overall. And it's not anymore sort of, okay, Victor Wembanyama, based off the number of games that he has played to this point, you could still pick him and he would be defensive player of the year. But if we know that you're not going to be available, or you're not going to be eligible, we just automatically ruled you out. It's like Victor Wembanyama does not appear here. He would have won defensive player of the year if he was healthy. That's how we approached it. So that wasn't a question. That was a housekeeping note. I wanted to ask you, Grant, what was the hardest award, like hardest category, whether it was like a full all NBA or all defense team or like a particular award for you to cobble together?
I think there were two that I struggled most with. One was an individual, which was defensive player of the year, because it was like we were done thinking about this when Wemby was healthy, like pretty early in the year. And it was like, he's got it. Let's just figure out who's like second, third, honorable mention, whatever. And then my last all NBA first team spot was I spent the most time thinking about, because that's another one. I think we had Wemby there for a good stretch as well. I think last time we did this, he was a first teamer for both of us. And then I think at points of the season, it's been like Brunson's there, or like, is Mobley there? What about Jaren Jackson? And like, the guy I picked is none of those people. That was the hardest one, because it felt like that was kind of spoken for until it wasn't.
I didn't even view it through that lens. I struggled with most improved player for some reason. I'm getting too caught up in like defining whether I think like who should be. It's like so I didn't consider any sophomores, but it's like that type of thing. Like, oh, should these big name players who are already good be eligible for it? And that's the word that always just trips me up when I'm trying to hammer down like my own personal criteria for it.
It's the one that's like, right. It's not even your personal criteria. It's like, what the fuck does this award even mean? Like, what's it supposed to, like, what kinds of improvements are we talking about? So yeah, I should have said that too. That's always I think for me, I just decided like, here's what I think this award means and just went with it. And I don't know if that's right, but in that way, it kind of simplified what I ended up doing.
Well, if we're all ready, shall we get started?
We shall.
We begin with our MVP ballots. Which are eerily similar for the shocker. Dan and Grant have similar thoughts. We have to start with the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander versus Nikola Jokic of it all. We both have Jokic over Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for anyone who is watching, but they're 1 and 2. Before we get into the differentiators, I do very much view them this point as it's like 1A, 1B, or 1A, 1A, where if you're going to pick Shai over Jokic, because I approach this saying, I want to make a case for Shai over Jokic. And I think there's one that's there. It just, for me personally, wasn't strong enough. And if you're going to say it's a tie, which maybe it is, then I'm just going to default to the better player. And I believe that Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world. So if the margins are that close, that's going to be what I would consider a worthwhile separator.
I would echo all that. I also have Jokic winning it, or I believe he's the MVP. I think you and I both agree like Shai's gonna win this award. I think the momentum is like pretty much irreversible at this point. And again, every word of this part of the conversation, I feel like we both want to couch with SGA is an MVP caliber player. Like this is one of the greatest guard seasons we've ever seen. He's doing it for a team that is running away with a good Western. Like, there's nothing we say in Jokic's favor is knocking Shai down. I don't feel like we should have to say that, but I guess everybody has decided the MVP discourse is toxic. So let's be like really, really not toxic about it. I don't know. I don't think we should have to bend over backwards to lay out how good SGA is and how deserving he would be if he won it. But that's the caveat before we go any farther.
For this podcast specifically, too, if we have to give caveats about the Thunder and the things that we have said about them, like even before they started being good, like that would just be ridiculous. But yeah, you invariably have to be, well, this is why Shai can't win it.
Yeah. So can I ask you, did you, I know we come into this open-minded. Did you come into this, just the SGA Jokic decision with, I think it's this guy as like a starting point and then crunch numbers, or like, you know what I mean? Like, how firm was your opinion going into prepping for today?
So the first 2 times we did this, my opinion was pretty firm, and I have never doubted going into it. I knew what my picks were like the previous 2 times. So I knew I had Jokic, but I went into this saying, you're not going to end up kind of picking Jokic. Like, it was that level of second guessing. And when I dug into it, the biggest differentiator for me is that you have to believe that the value Shai provides on defense, like that gap between him and Jokic, makes up for a gap that still exists on offense, which I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has thinned out. But you look at like Jokic, the Nuggets offensive rating outside garbage time with him on the floor is like 128.4. That is obscene. That is way higher than the offensive rating that the Thunder have with Shai on the court. Now, if you flip-flop it to defense, okay, sure, maybe I'd feel differently if I thought Shai was the OKC's best defender. But I think what really just makes the difference is I'm always going to gravitate towards the lifelines for this for offenses in this conversation. And there's still a gap when you're looking at the passing specifically. Like they're on the same level as a scorer. Like I think that Jokic is just, but like the way that he thinks and manipulates the game as a passer, it's not well, like Shai really needs to catch up to him. It's over. Nobody's catching up to Nikola Jokic in that regard right now. And when I'm watching him, he's still doing things or just like picking apart defenses and drawing a type of attention to where Nuggets fans are now talking about like the Jokic rules because of the way that some teams have tried guarding him lately. It's the fact that Shai is so mission critical to a team that is historically good. He can win MVP. I do think that, and this does a disservice to him to me, there's too much right now. Like Nikola Jokic has already won 3. The Thunder are the best team in the league. And I'll end with this. The 1 year Nikola Jokic did not win it, like over this span, that's when the Nuggets were first in the Western Conference. And so I like to look at each season kind of in a vacuum, not, oh, what happened prior? How many awards does this guy have? Or at least I try to look at it that way. And I'm certainly not trying to be like, there's no argument here because we've seen Jokic in the playoffs. But remember, between Embiid and Jokic, it used to be, well, like, we don't know if like you can win in the postseason with Jokic. So this regular season award should go to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think for me, I asked that because I went into this thinking like I really need to almost come in with a default of SGA has it. What can I point to? Like I wanted a rebuttable presumption that SGA had it, and I needed to find evidence to like take it away. Like he had the benefit of the doubt. That's how, because I had been thinking kind of the opposite all year, and just as an exercise, I just kind of went in that way. And Jokic still, just for many of the reasons you mentioned, and gut and feeling and other stuff, like he just took it away. And I think it's like he's more efficient. His true shooting's higher. The offense with Jokic on is better than in Denver than OKC's is with Shea on, and like the on-off stuff tends to favor Jokic, but that's not really an MVP thing unless you really twist it and say like, well, to this team, his value is so great because they have nothing behind him. I'm not super persuaded by that. I just like to look at how good these teams are with them on the floor. And I think you can make the Nuggets aren't as good as the Thunder because of the defense, but offensively, if we're just talking about like, what level does Jokic get the Nuggets to offensively? What level does Shea get the Thunder to offensively? Jokic gets his team to a higher offensive level. And the defensive gains, I think, for Oklahoma City are much more collective, because oftentimes you can make the case that Shea is the 4th best defender on the floor, sometimes the 5th. Again, not taken away. The other thing is just, in addition to the scoring, Jokic has got 27 assist points created per game. Shea's at 16. It's just like, that's just another way to frame the passing stuff that you talked about. I think Jokic is just on a different level as a facilitator for others. So it just, I mean, there's plenty of catch-alls. I think EPM likes Shea better, like by a tiny amount. That just illustrates how close it is. I think in the end, Jokic is still just the guy that causes the most trouble for a defense and is the hardest problem to solve for a defense. And if that, in addition to the numbers, just narrowly did it for me. I think, again, this could go either way. I will have no problem if Shea wins it. Like
he's
0.
going to win it. It's just there's the voter fatigue might be and it's not, if he wins it, voter fatigue, I think, will factor in just the way that's how it's being framed, but that doesn't denigrate him as the MVP candidate. And I'm with you on the on-off swings are cool to cite, and like they can kind of show how much you can uplift maybe a team that's whether like, okay, what's there. But if you have a very low baseline and for the rest of your supporting cast and you're a superstar, that's just naturally going to be higher. Still with Jokic, that's what gets interesting, is because if you want to point out that, so we both mentioned the Denver offense with Jokic on the floor versus OKC's, Denver probably has a better collection of offensive talent around Jokic, at least in their top. When you're looking at Murray, I don't like, but like, then you're starting to say,
close, though. I don't know if I would. I'm not sure about that.
My point is that the kind of quality of the supporting cast matters. And if you look at the two-way quality of these supporting casts, if you want to say that Shea's a better defender than Jokic, you're correct. He also has the infrastructure there because of the talent around him is so much better on that end of the floor than it would be for Jokic, like offensively. If you're looking at Jokic is better on offense and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is better on defense, who has more of the helping hand on that side of the floor? It's obviously Shea there. So if you wanted to look at it from the like kind of, take this player off perspective, like that's, I think, worth, or who's doing more with less. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. But you're right. It is close on. I mean, Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein missing so much of the year. I think it kind of should factor in, okay, like who you're talking about, J-Dub, and that's basically it for a lot of the season. So, but it's so close. And this is one of them. I'm trying to think the last time I thought the MVP race was this close, because we both had Jokic over Embiid that 1 year pretty comfortably. I'm trying to remember like offhand, but this has been one of the more closer ones. Maybe it's the one, was it Jokic's first MVP? Didn't it feel like it could have been him, Giannis, or Embiid? Or was that
I think those three have kind of been the only serious considerations for a while. It feels like. The last thing I wanted to say about because I don't know how much we need to really talk about defense because neither of these guys are defined by it, and MVPs are almost never like decided on the basis of defense. It seems like I would agree that Shea is better at his job than Jokic is, but I think I've made some version of this argument before where like the demands on an impact of a guard defender who is nowhere near the best at that position on his team are so much lower than that of a center. Like we over index on centers in DPOY just because like we collectively acknowledge the defense of a center just matters more than the defense of any other position. And so Jokic could be a C+ on defense as a center. And you could argue that that's more important than someone who's a B+ or an A- as a guard. Like I think that's a fair thing to say. So you could even twist it to say that Jokic actually has like defensive advantages because of the position he has to play and how much more important it is. Again, that's like 5% of this conversation for me.
And I think Shea he's going to find himself in going up against tougher just because of the position he plays. Like at some point there's going to be actions where he finds himself covering someone specifically who is, and there's also, there's a lot of value in forcing turnovers and knowing when and when you can't do that. With Jokic, so I've seen a lot of people say that and I do feel like for a really good portion of the season and maybe for games that don't matter, that he hasn't been great. Like this is definitely, I don't think he's been as good defensively this year as maybe the previous two. But like when you're watching some of like the higher stakes games for like those two Oklahoma City Thunder ones, like he had some stretches where it was just like, I don't understand what people are talking about there. Yeah. You just have to remember it's the full season. But I think that I'm not going to sit here and say he's perennially underrated on defense, but I do think there's a level of underappreciation forget the rebounding and ending possessions. We know the value in that, but just like sometimes the way he's moving or knowing to be in the right spots or like when he is playing in more aggressive coverages, I still don't think that we fully appreciate like at least his highs. They're never, he's never has these impressive sustainable peaks, I guess I would say, but like there are peaks.
I think the other thing, I know we keep saying last thing, but you keep making me think of stuff. Even if Shea can often find himself in the position of like, you're stuck on Donovan Mitchell, like, cause they hunted you or whatever. They didn't hunt you, but like, that's how it shook out. You got to guard him. And so for that reason, like he, kind of plays a higher leverage role than it might seem. I would argue like if the opposing team is running a pick and roll, Jokic is involved in the coverage of that. Yeah. And so it's just like, he's going to have a pretty central position in almost every defensive possession in a way that Shea really doesn't. Because there are stretches where Shea's just on a guy in the corner and can chill. And Jokic, in addition to having a similarly super high usage role on offense, like I think he's probably in the action more defensively just because that's just what centers have to do,
This is the actual final thing on these two. I don't know if I wish that I was like a fan of one of these teams because they make it seem like it's so like open and shut. No, it's obviously Shea. It's obviously Jokic. And that always, there's things about fandom that can frustrate me. I think that's one that I kind of appreciate where I sometimes have to remember if they're responding to me or I see it come across my timeline, I shouldn't interact with it because it's clearly coming from like a position of I'm supporting this guy. But I wish if there's people who are not like Thunder or Nuggets fans, and they just think that this is an easy decision, I wish I felt that way.
Yeah.
They would just save me so much time.
And no, the fandom thing is like, I think I remember when Steph was the unanimous MVP, I think I probably was so in the bag as a fan that I would have been like annoyed had he not been unanimous, which has like never happened before. So I can sympathize with the Nuggets or Thunder colored glasses view of the MVP debate. I get it.
Well, speaking of fandom, since you have Steph 5 on your ballot, very quickly, we both have, I have Tatum at 3, Giannis at 4. You have them flip-flopped, Giannis at 3, Tatum at 4. What goes into that for you?
Between Giannis and Tatum?
Yeah.
Not a lot. Like it could have gone the other way. Really, this was just like who's 1, who's 2. And then after that, Giannis and Tatum have to be there. And I did. So the 5th spot, I guess if I had to make a case for Giannis, I guess like he's arguably more central to the operation, maybe on both ends, but that's just more of a, like the Celtics have more good players. And I don't have a huge, if you wanted to flip those two, not a big issue to me.
He's clearly been better, Giannis, than Tatum per minute. But like Tatum has played like 2,300 minutes or something.
Indestructible,
so once you get to 500 plus, I think that when you look at how good Tatum is on defense, I will say he was making it. He's been shooting sub 34% from three since Christmas. That's a long time to be there.
Yeah.
But I think that speaks to everything else he can do as a playmaker, drawing fouls, and then the help defense, of course. We all know he's one of those best guys. But you have Steph, number 5. And I will say, I'd like to kind of play, someone's got his Warriors goggles on. I have Steph 6. So that's just not like
Well, the other thing is I had him third team last time we did this, and you had him second. So he's just climbed for me more than he has for you. Second team, not third overall. So this one, the 5th spot, I thought a lot about, like, most of the comparisons I did were between him and Donovan Mitchell, just because, like, they felt kind of similar. And I needed to. Now, I didn't like Mobley. I thought about, like, we've probably had Brunson in this spot. But we had Franz Wagner pretty close to this at one point earlier in the year.
4 for both of us in the first quarter MVP voting.
It came down to me with Steph. It's a lot of the same arguments that we've made over the years, where it's just like his impact on the offense. The Warriors score like 118 with him on. It's 104 without him. That has been, and that's with Butler offering a massive boost over the last like month or so. So that number really is even more heavily skewed if you're thinking about the whole year.
Steph been massively boosting the Jimmy Butler edition?
Hard to say. It's his efficiency. It's the way that I think, still, with the exception of Jokic and Shea, Steph's the next guy that commands like 100 maximum defensive attention, like everything else that happens on the floor. Like, he's the central figure in it, whether he has the ball or not. That's really not true of like someone like Mitchell, someone like Garland, Brunson probably comes close, but it's just not the same. So difficulty of his role, the heater he's been on post trade deadline, which just, he looks like an all NBA first teamer. His team is, he's helping lift his team to that level. I think the best case against it is like actually Butler has as much to do with this run as Steph does, but Steph's numbers have just been so much better. Like, he's just playing better. I feel the more I've looked into it, because I was hesitant at first, the more I feel like pretty good about this. There's like, I don't know, 20% of this is homerism and the rest of it's just genuine objectivity. But I feel pretty good about it. I don't feel like I needed to, stretch too hard to get him here.
I think it's justifiable. I have Evan Mobley, which I don't know if that will be a common, like, where he's going to, I think if I had to guess, Donovan Mitchell will finish higher in MVP voting, like, of the Cavaliers than Evan Mobley. And I get it, because when you watch the Cavs, who are teams planning around the most offensively?
Right.
It's Donovan Mitchell. Now, Mobley, I don't want to get into too much of his defensive stuff, since he's obviously going to come up in the DPOY discussion, but offensively, there's been a great deal of improvement there. We've focused on in the past, like, that it's dropped a little bit, but like his finishing through contact is a lot better. The 3-point shot on the year, over 36% on better volume. That's dipped recently, but like the fact that he's still kind of around there after going through this sort of slump is huge. I think that he could be a better playmaker, but like the quality of the passes and the way that he's reacting when defenses like collapse onto him, and like the inclination of defenses to collapse onto him now feels like that it's higher than it was. So I look at this and say, okay, he's probably the Cavs' 3rd best offensive player. But if there's a chance that you're one of the 3 best defensive players in the NBA, and then you're the most valuable defender and like 3rd most valuable offensive player on a team that might just win 70 games, the impact he's having, I mean, a lot of people can cite, okay, he plays with Jarrett Allen. Sure. The minutes without Jarrett Allen, he's been killing it. Like, defensively, I believe the Cavs are in like the 91st percentile of defensive efficiency when he's playing without Jarrett Allen. I would have to double check that. It's probably my DPOY notes. So he does that. And then the fact that he just, again, I don't want to harp too much on the defense. I'm going to end it here. But the fact that he can be so versatile on defense, but then he's still doing like all this other regular big man stuff, even when he is playing with Jarrett Allen, like during those stretches, just the versatility, the improvement, the value that I think he's driving offensively for the Cavs to do these things off the ball because he has grown on the ball. It's just a really big deal. And I don't know. That's one of like the most fascinating conversations, is who is the MVP of the Cavs? Never mind, do they belong in the top 5? Because I do think there's a real I think you could make case for Darius Garland, and we probably did at some point this year.
No, I definitely have had Garland over Mitchell when we're doing this exercise for most of the year. And then I think I have Mitchell. Well, we're going to spoil our second teams, but that evened out. And then if you're just thinking about offense, yeah, okay, it's one of those two. But like, we're going to have, spoiler, Mobley's going to rank pretty high in DPOY here. And that's a real thing. I would say I have no issue with you having Mobley fifth. I think that's a totally justifiable pick. I think you having him there is a good, I don't know what the word is. I think outside like the NBA sicko silo, people know who Evan Mobley is and like recognize he's good and probably think of him as a good defender. I do still think, generally speaking, we're a little behind on appreciating like, no, he's actually like, he's gonna be one of the best players in the league for the next 10 years. Like he's really he's not Giannis, he's not Tatum, he's not at that level, but he's closer to that than you think.
Combined, almost. I mean, like,
yeah, right.
Shooting is not fair. This is like, I feel like it's almost if you put choppered Kevin Garnett in today's NBA, maybe
pretty similar, I think.
Yeah.
Which was the billing, which was like he's kind of finally delivered.
There were so like the things that were being said about him.
Yeah,
they felt obscene, but it was sort of like, oh, he's a Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo hybrid was the one that
he's half Duncan, half Garnett. Like, okay, right. Great. These are like two of the best bigs of all time, just in the same body. Got it.
I did want to shout out because I think Giannis's case, if you wanted to make a case for Giannis to win, he's the most important player on offense and defense for his team. I really think there's only one other player in the league right now that fits that bill. Can you guess who it is?
Jaren Jackson.
Yes. And the only stat I'm going to throw out here, because we're going to talk about him in a little bit, is actually, I guess you want to go into our All-NBA teams?
Yeah, let's do that.
So let's start. My first team All-NBA is the same as my MVP ballot: Jokic, Shea, Tatum, Giannis, Mobley. Second team, I have Brunson, Garland, Jalen Brunson, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Steph Curry, and Jaren Jackson Jr. I have Jaren Jackson Jr. as an honorable mention with Steph as MVP. Grant, he's in the 99th percentile of self-created shot-making efficiency. That is
incredible.
Absurd. Yeah. And he's their most important defender. So, and I think this is in part because John Morant's been banged up, and I know that John Morant is clearly the better passer, but I think you can make a case that Jaren Jackson Jr. has provided more overarching offensive value to them, or at least has been more important this year.
I think given the availability, I think that's like just the right take at this point. Like, it doesn't mean that like next year, if Ja's healthy and can play all the time, like maybe that changes. But if you're just talking about this year, which we are, that's what these awards are for. I don't think anybody has been more important on either end than him for the Grizzlies.
The Jalen Brunson of it all, I would be shut. Like, he only needs to play in 4 more games to maintain his eligibility. So I don't think the ankle injury would prevent him from doing there. His case seems self-explanatory. Steph's, to me, you laid it out like in the MVP debate. Having both Garland and Mitchell here, maybe some people would quibble at that, but like, I know that, okay, so we look at Mobley for the defense and his improvement, and then Donovan Mitchell's just being like their go-to guy, and he's been toggling between a bunch of different things on offense. I just don't think we appreciate like the gravity of Darius Garland, both on and away from the ball, and he is their best passer. Yep. So like, he's been fantastic. My third team, I have Anthony Edwards. LeBron James, I think this is the first time I put him on an All-NBA team. I think he'll be back in time to maintain his eligibility.
He's a close one, though.
He's a close one, but for now, and we don't know for sure that he's going to be out, he definitely turned on the Jets defensively, like, I don't know, midway through January. If he had played like this all year, he probably would have been in the top of the MVP discussion, like next to Jokic and Shea.
Yeah.
I have Cat still on third team. That case has gotten a little weaker. I believe I had him at second team at one point. The two new entrants for me, and I think at least one of these two should have, in retrospect, been on my All-NBA team last time. I have Domas Sabonis. He'll be back. I know there's no timetable for his return, but like, he just plays through everything. Right. So he's the player in the league that I think we overthink the most. Do I understand that he's limited and tough to build around? Sure. This is not a playoff award. Like, if you're just going to hit a bunch of threes or shoot really well from 3, pancake guys on screen, set up your teammates, like get your team running in transition, leads the league in rebounds, I think at this point, super efficient play finisher, excellent passer, great rebounder. I just feel like we overthink him sometimes. Like, he's an All-NBA, especially with all these injuries, too. And then I have Cade Cunningham, who has just been, the improvement specifically from him on defense has been huge. The way he's driving transition for the Pistons this year, they increased their frequency on the break by 8% with him on the court. That's the third highest mark among players who've played at least 1,000 minutes. Only Alex Sarr and LeBron are ahead of him. And the only reason that Alex Sarr is like in there is when you have a talent deficit as the Wizards, you get out in transition. That's what you do. So he's just been incredibly valuable. The improved is, you still wonder about some of the finishing, doing a better job of drawing shooting fouls, but he is, I mean, again, especially in the current climate, was an easy inclusion for. So this actually might have been, we were talking about how difficult is this exercise. This might have been the easiest time I had building my all NBA teams.
Yeah, I guess, well, just because some of the names that you had to, like the Kyries and the Anthony Davises are kind of stripped off.
On mine last time, both of them, I think, made it. And the tough cuts for me before we get to yours, or if you have any questions about mine, I have Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton listed as honorable mentions, both Pacers, obviously. Jalen Williams from the Thunder. And then, look, Kevin Durant has been magnificent, but the Suns are losing the minutes he plays. I know what he's done defensively for them, but I almost sometimes feel that we're swayed by the fact that they're working off such a low defensive baseline that he does anything. And it's not like he has the most difficult job. Like when you're looking at who's covering who, it's more of just like this, not even a help guy, but it's like a big, which is fine, but it's not like he's their primary rim protector either. I think the bigger thing for me is just he's doing all of this offensively, and the fact that it doesn't necessarily matter to the larger context of the team, I think speaks like, okay, this is one of the greatest players of all time, one of the best players in the NBA right now, but can he drive single-handedly the success of others at the level of some of these other guys? The answer to me is no.
Yeah, I think that's right. That I found myself, because I have LeBron on a team too, and I was like, well, if LeBron, why not Durant? Like, why wouldn't both of them just be on there?
Well, I mean, the Lakers are losing the minutes that LeBron plays too.
Yeah, right. Famously, that's like one of the big
LeBron's passing, like that's the distinction. There's the
right.
scoring might be similar. Kevin Durant's the better scorer. Maybe he's been the better defender, but it's just like LeBron's playmaking kind of just.
Yeah. No. Okay. So let's say I have my MVP ballot is my first team, which is Jokic, SGA, Tatum, Giannis, and Steph. Our second teams are similar, except basically we flipped Mobley and Steph. So I have Mitchell, Mobley, Jackson, Garland, and Brunson on my second team. So Mobley falls. We just swap those two. Third team, I have Edwards, Cade Cunningham, LeBron, Jalen Williams, and Tyrese Halliburton. Third team was hard because I don't have Cat on there, and I feel like that's an oversight. I don't have. I want to make sure I don't have Durant. I don't have Sabonis. Those are like the main.
You don't have Sabonis? Color me shocked.
You're like, I think we overthink him. I'm like, I don't think we think hard enough. No, he is. I will say, because I did think about him, and did I have him at some point this year? Maybe, I don't remember.
I would hazard absolutely not.
Unlikely. He is really and this is probably just why I'm wrong about him. He is the guy that like forces the hardest conversations about. At what point are the individual statistics like just too good for us to ignore and like pass off as not meaningful? Because leading the league in rebounding, he is making threes. He's not shooting a lot. Like great screen, all the things you said. It's like, that's all true. And
winning yet, minutes with him on the floor too.
Yeah, and yet here I am just like, I don't think that drives winning. And it's like, well, okay, so does he need to average 30 and 20? What if he was averaging 30 and 20? And, still shooting 43% from three? Like, would that be enough? I don't know. It's a good thought experiment for me.
I do think if you're approaching it from the perspective of it's a matter of taste, where if you think that with J-Dub, because of what he does defensively, like that. So, but if you're coming into this saying Sabonis can't make all NBA because he doesn't drive winning, which I don't think that's the perspective or vantage point from which you're viewing this.
Not quite, but I'm near that, I feel like, which is probably not a great place.
And at least you're self-aware enough to admit it then.
Right. Thank you. I'm deeply biased, but I admit it. So I guess that means it's okay. Yeah. So Cat versus Halliburton is tough, and Jalen Williams is tough over, Durant. Like, if it's just, I would just echo what you said about Durant. I thought that was kind of what I was wrestling with, of like, kind of similar to Sabonis. It's like, well, but what are these numbers? What have they done? Like, what have they, is he, I'm not saying like he's just out there getting his in either case for those guys, it's like, it's not like that. It's just, look, we're not moving Cade off of here. Like Cade, I'm going to talk more about him. We're not moving Edwards. So it's just, we ran out of spots and cuts had to be made.
The other thing I try, especially with All NBA, I try not to I'm focused on more of the individual brilliance, which is Kevin Durant's strongest case.
Sure.
But it's also like, look at how out of place he would be on this list relative to these other teams that are on there. And if this is because the Suns have just tainted us too much because they're just so fucking depressing,
yeah,
that's at least a little bit on Kevin Durant too. Like,
yeah, right. I think it's not. Yeah, it's not his fault.
Look, people could have him on. I know people are going to have him on their All NBA teams, and I'm not. He's been great, and the fact that just coming back, like the injury that he did, and just his age, and he's still able to do this. You put him in like a really high functioning ecosystem, he's going to be dominant and help you drive winning. I just think that. I don't think the defense is where it was like kind of in the middle of the year, and just Phoenix being that bad with him on the floor. I just like, at least LeBron flipped the switch. And so KD might have had that higher baseline to begin the year, but like LeBron like kind of flipped the switch. And it's, the other thing too is I hate talking about this stuff, but everything matters. The leadership element here, like LeBron, like being on the Lakers, and he didn't know about maybe some people don't believe that, but he doesn't know about the Luka Doncic trade. But like the way you handle that turnover, he actually handled it pretty well. You and I have complaints about the things that LeBron says and does. And so having that and then dealing with that type of turnover in the middle of the year and still figuring it out next to Luka, like that, just adaptability. I think that's, there's value in that. So I'm too insecure, in my opinion, because I feel the need to continuously justify
it. Yeah, no, I think that's a good place to move on. Mostly similar All NBA teams for us, with a couple exceptions.
Did you struggle with why isn't Anthony Edwards higher? Because I was like, he has a second team case, and I think if I had to bounce someone, it probably would be Garland for Anthony Edwards. But I'm just, when I watch him, I just find myself thinking, like, I just wish he was like 20% better as a playmaker and consistently 15% more engaged on defense. And so it's just, I'm calling him one of like the 15 most valuable players in the league this year. But still.
I would say that I think we would both agree that like this isn't what the award is, but it's like, we are starting a playoff series today. Do you want Anthony Edwards on your team or Darius Garland? I think all things being equal, you just pick Edwards because the level he can reach is just higher, because we've kind of seen it. But I didn't have that hard a time because I just think Garland, just to use the Garland comparison, I'm not sure who I would be toggling if I were to move Edwards up. It's just had a better season, like just because of the playmaking stuff, because to get back to the Sabonis Durant of it all, it feels sometimes like all the stuff Edwards is doing, maybe because of the like iffy playmaking and like that he really does subsist on a pretty heavy diet of like hard shots, like that feels different to me. And I guess I'm not rewarding that as much as I do someone like Garland that like is making other guys better and is taking better shots, like that kind of thing. I don't know if that's fair. That's just how I looked at it.
The other thing I wanted to ask you was I know you were struggling with the Halliburton inclusion. And that's, I think if people focus on points per game, then maybe they'll be there. But I think for like 70% of this season, he's absolutely been an All NBA player. And I just might be over indexing on like that first third of the year where it felt like he was so at best.
I mean, that counts too. Like those games are equally valuable. I just kind of, I guess me putting him here is an endorsement of the idea that this is more who he is than he was to begin this season. Which is also because kind of a reverse of last year where it's like, oh, I think that's who he is when he's a MVP, like top 5 guy, and then is terrible after the hamstring. I don't know. Can we just combine his second half this year and first half last year and put him on first team?
Yeah, right. That's what he would be like that. And also I try really hard to put J-Dub on my team. There's too much offensive noise. Like he can hit some pretty big shots, but some of the efficiency on like his self-created buckets or just, we know I think when you've put him next to Chet or Isaiah Hartenstein in the minutes without Shea, that's where people overblow the concern with the non-Shea minutes. I couldn't quite get there because the offense feels a tick or two like too low to put him on this list for me right now.
I think his stretch as a center and some of the rim protection numbers and some of the defensive disruption numbers are carrying a lot of weight for me here, because I agree offensively he has not been as good as last year. Like that's just it's really not that close from an efficiency standpoint. So I leaned pretty heavily on like the total package to get him here.
And honestly, for me, his total package, again, I could be over indexing on this. It gets a little weaker when now, like, okay, the sample size with Hartenstein and or Holmgren has expanded. So his defensive role is not as just ridiculously heavy as it was 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah. It's hard for me to unsee what he did as a center. Like it's hard to get that out of my head.
Like the percentage of shots that he's contesting when he's on the floor, he's dipped where he ranks in the percentile, but he's still like 88th for the year. That's fucking absurd.
Great. And he can guard a point guard if you need him to. So it's just like I couldn't leave him off.
Do you want to take us through defensive player of the year?
Yes. This will be relatively easy here. So I've got Mobley 1, Jaren Jackson 2. Didn't really give a whole lot of thought to anyone besides those two. And now that Wemby's out of it, and because Chet hasn't played enough to qualify, like not even close. And then I have Amen Thompson 3. I am very much open to like 7 guys being third there. I think he's a case. Remember how I used to say, like, I only ever see good Gabe Vincent games. And so I just think Gabe Vincent is great. This is more the Heat era. I think I only ever see a great Amen Thompson games. And I've watched a lot of Rockets. And so that leads me to believe that a lot of his games are great. But you should have a big guy third, I think, because I just argued in the MVP thing, and I believe this, that big guys just tend to matter more. Thompson is just the class of defender that ruins so much stuff in so many areas on the floor. And I mean that in the best way, that I wanted to put him here because who cares who's third? Just like he's so predatory and disruptive. And I love watching him play defense. And like, I think you feel it. You feel him on the floor as an offense in ways that you don't really, except for like 5 other guys in the league that can guard wings and stuff. And he's like a decent big guy defensively. So I wanted to honor that by having him third.
Yeah, I have Zubats third for me, and I don't even feel great about it. I thought about Bam. I thought about Rudy Gobert. I thought about the perimeter guys, Amen Thompson, Lou Dort. I just, like, as a rim deterrent, like Zubats is in the 90th percentile of rim deterrence, and I think that he's more versatile defensively than some of the, like, a Gobert type big, where like his feet just seem a little bit quicker, and you could put him in slightly more difficult matchups. The Clippers defense, it's been incredible, and I think when you get to the volume of it all, you can't like reward Chris Dunn or Derrick Jones Jr. for that.
Yeah.
Zubats plays a shit ton of minutes. And it's not just that the Clippers defense is good. They're third in points allowed per possession against top 10 defenses. And so like, this is someone whose brand of defense is scaling to some of the most difficult matchups. The Mobley versus Jackson with Wemby no longer eligible of it all. I would say it's pretty close, but I think that when you look at these two, neither of them are just, okay, like go check that guy for the entire game and you need to erase them. That's not what they do, which is part of like why their job description is so like expansive, and that helps make their case. But Mobley can actually, I think, do that a little bit more than Jaren Jackson.
I was going to say, sorry to jump in, is like Mobley feels like when you're describing what makes someone like Bam, who's like historically one of the greatest switch defenders ever, when you the qualities you describe in Bam like pretty closely map onto Mobley in ways they don't with Jackson for exactly what you're talking about.
So, and when you like dig into the numbers, so like the percentage of shots that they're contesting when they're on the floor, Evan Mobley's in the 85th percentile to Jaren Jackson Jr.'s 58th. When you look at rim deterrence per 100 possessions, Mobley's in the 92nd percentile, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s in the 66th. When you look at rim points saved per 100 possessions, I think they're both in the 91st percentile I have written down. So it's just, I mean, and then also when they're playing center, like the Cavs are allowing 108.3 points per possessions, 100 possessions. That is in the 92nd percentile. When Jaren Jackson Jr. is at center, the Grizzlies are in the 82nd percentile of defensive efficiency. I don't think you can sit here and say, maybe now that they have DeAndre Hunter on the team, but otherwise, no, you don't get to sit here and say like the Grizzlies have a bunch of weaker defenders when Jaren Jackson Jr. is at center than Mobley would when he's in Cleveland at center. So I think there's enough distinction there to where I believe this is close. I believe there's a case for Jaren Jackson Jr., but when you look at kind of the body, and I know that he, even with Edie there, he doesn't have the quote unquote safety net that a Jared Allen does, but that he does then all these other things. And so I think that his role is more malleable without ever really sacrificing potency.
Yeah. I think I hate to just turn into like eye test and scouting report guy, but I have a very similar numbers to what you laid out, and it's just like the numbers are favorable to Mobley. That just, whether you're talking as a perimeter defender or as an interior, like a rim protector. I think when you watch Mobley, doesn't he seem quicker than Jackson to you? I think Jackson sometimes plays like he's a little longer. Like he'll get he's beat and then he'll pin it to the board anyway, like that kind of thing. But I feel like Mobley, his ability to just stay in front, regardless of who he's matched up
And not
against,
foul. That was the other thing.
and not
Too. Like,
foul
Jaren
is
Jackson Jr. will still get
there's
into
a
foul
big
trouble.
differentiator. Jackson has it's not as bad as it was, but yeah, Jackson does get himself like on the bench because of too much fouling. But Mobley just feels more like he's actually a guard when he's down in a stance on the perimeter, who's 6'11". And it just there's nobody. I don't know. Maybe Bam's the only other guy that is just like that guy's a guard, and he's also an ace rim protector. Like Jackson's great. Like again, this is like the MVP thing. We're not taking away from him. I just think Mobley's that special.
It's funny that they both do have the same defining weakness. Well, maybe because Jaren Jackson Jr. can still get in foul trouble, they don't. But it's just, and I know part of this is their job description, but even when they're at the 5, their teams just still can't like hit the defensive glass.
Yeah.
It's just like they're both just sort of in that same bucket. You want to take us through what the all defense teams will be?
Yeah. So again, we're not actually that similar here. So we both. I'll just start with mine. I guess we both have Mobley and Jackson, obviously.
Well,
so
this is your entire all defense team that's on the screen.
I got Zubats as a first teamer, so shout out to your DPOY order, along with Thompson, Mobley, Jackson. I put Dyson Daniels as my last first teamer. Again, probably should be a big guy, but just like the deflect.
Why? Is it? It's just look. Could you say like he maybe can't shape an entire defensive system the same way a big guy can? But like
exactly
fair, the Hawks don't have a big who can shape their system, and so having Dyson Daniels just disrupt and also what I will say, the number of just like part of it feels reckless. I don't know if you ever watched him in the crunch time moments where he forces a turnover on like these game deciding possessions.
Right,
he does it, and the fact that he could do it is crazy.
No, I mean, look, I feel like I'm almost like arguing against it because I do like if I'm starting a defense tomorrow, I might pick someone I have on second team like Draymond or Adebayo or Gobert over Daniels. But if you're just talking about like what's happened this season, which I guess is what I'm doing a little more, his disruption is sort of undeniable. Like because he's as impactful as you can be. I think at his position, at that position, right? Like he messes up. He's on a Thompson. He exceeds Thompson as far as like forcing turnovers, getting steals, deflecting passes. I think as an on ball, well, actually as like an off ball defender, like denying touches. I don't think I saw anybody make it harder for Jalen Brunson to get the ball this year or for Steph Curry to get the ball than Daniels did. So I guess in that sense, like, a big guy can't do that. Like he can't be the one that's like your best player can't catch the ball. Like he's not capable of doing that.
You made me just think of something. I want to ask you a question, and it's more philosophical, like about defense. If you're going up against a team that is more heliocentric or has, even if you don't want to call them that, has like there's this one star, and then there's a question about the number 2. Not that they're bad, but can they actually drive the offense? Does someone like Dyson Daniels then have a case to be more important than like a big who's trying to anchor the back line specifically?
I think, so let's just say it's the Thunder, because that's kind of what you're just like, if you have SGA.
Just, I know like Mikal Bridges can get to the mid range and Towns on his drives, but just, I think we've kind of seen like there are limitations to the Knicks offense without Jalen, or even the way they run it in crunch time. Jalen Brunson's usage rate's like 80.
Yeah. It's interesting. So in that hypothetical, it is like, like what's the value of if you have Zubats, for example, like how does Zubats affect what Jalen Brunson does, and like,
who would you rather have going up against the Knicks as your best defender, Dyson Daniels or I'm like Zubac or even Rudy Gobert at this point, like one of those guys?
It's an interesting question. I don't know. I think you probably, maybe we overrate like how easy it is for someone like Daniels to stay on, a singular offensive player. Cause there are screens, like he's going to have to work his ass off to get over screens. They're going to try to get him away. And if he is just face guarding that guy, then the other players get to play 4-on-4 and that's just easier to score. I don't know. I think default to just bigs matter more, like blanket statement to a defense than smalls. But that's a good thought experiment, because I think that is a case where you might say someone like Daniels, who can just prevent your best player from touching the ball, like maybe that does matter more than a Gobert level, like, rim protector. I don't know. I think what you're helping me do is justify why Daniels is here.
I think
And
it's
I
okay.
have,
My point is that I don't think you need to look at your first team and say, like Gobert or
right.
Like, I
Like,
think
you're right. Because Gobert hasn't had like a great season by his standards. So, and
it's
neither has Bam.
not even close.
Yeah.
Just even when you look at like kind of the percentage of shots he's contesting while on the floor.
Yeah.
And I like for a lot of those minutes, it's not like, oh yeah, they want to use Naz Reid or Julius Randle as that guy. Like, no,
Right.
like part of that is that, with Julius Randle, his job does get harder, but
Yeah. Just quickly through the rest of my second team, Tamani Kamara, I think, is just a menacing 5-position defender.
the base of a defense with him, Donovan Clingan, and Denny Avdia moving forward is going to ruin lives.
Portland is going to get a lot of stops, like, as they mature with this core. So, and then Bam and Gobert are like partly kind of legacy picks, I guess, but it's like we all agree, like, they're still really good. Like, they're
but Draymond's not a legacy pick then?
Well, Draymond gets that too, but a lot of the catch-alls really like him still this year. Like, he's way up there in DEPM, he's way up there in defensive LeBron. And then J-Dub, I talked about him a fair amount, like the versatility, the moonlighting as a center for several weeks, and the fact that he can just guard 1 through 4 very comfortably, is a good backline guy, which is weird for a wing. So he was actually a pretty easy inclusion. The rest of these guys were all, maybe Kamara was pretty easy as a second teamer too, but the rest of them, definitely there's arguments against. Who'd you have?
So first team, I have Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson Jr., Ivica Zubac. Those are my top 3 in DPOY. I still have Bam. You called him a legacy pick. I just think he's still really good. There's some noise, and he's never going to be the best rim protector, but you talk about not having a ton of like defensive talent around him. Jimmy Butler wasn't really playing this year. Hayward Highsmith missed some time. Jaime Jaquez is just sort of deteriorated. You're playing a ton of minutes with Tyler Hero, and the Heat are still an above average defense. Bam feels like, and this is a cop out because we're using numbers to justify a lot of our picks. I don't know if there's ever going to be numbers that adequately quantify how good Bam Adebayo is on defense.
Yeah.
And then I have Lou Dort. This is just, he has the toughest matchup difficulty of anyone on the Thunder every single night, and he is impossible to screen. He's probably not as versatile as some of these other guys, but we talk a lot about like go out there and if it's not shut that person down, defend him for 35 minutes a night while just being screened and like having to fight around those things. He just does it better than perhaps anybody else in the league. And I find myself, maybe I'm overcorrecting here because I don't necessarily want to say he's underrated, but I just feel like he's underappreciated because of how good the Thunder are. And even on offense, not germane to this discussion, but what have I always said? There's value in the volume, and like he's hitting his threes. So there's just no hesitation from him. Yeah, you don't necessarily love it, like his off the dribble adventures, but this is just a player. When you look at the arc of his career, it's just been so fun to watch. And I still believe that he is one of the most impactful defenders on the game, that the Thunder's defense would look materially different without him, especially because you've had to deal with so many injuries on the front line.
Yeah, he allows Williams and like even Case and Wallace and certainly SGA to like move down a peg in the like how tough is my matchup list, that's super valuable to that defense. I felt bad about leaving him off.
I have Dyson Daniels on second team. I thought about putting him over Bam for first team, so that was really close. Tamani Kamara, easy inclusion. I've gone back and forth on Draymond this year. I had him as my like one of my DPOY top 3s earlier in the year. I think he's still been really good, and like the way he's able to direct the defense while still handling all this stuff, head and feet on swivels. Also, Golden State's defense, like for the year, Grant, 6th in points allowed per possession against top 10 offenses. That's like
good defense.
But look at like, okay, Andrew Wiggins was not as good this year as he was last year. You've been giving minutes to like look at where the rotation was at one point. Like Gary Payton the second has not looked the same until recently, or as good as he was until recently. So it's not like they were forcing a ton of turnovers at the beginning of the year. There was that hot start, but to be there, that shows a ton of value for Draymond. Rudy Gobert, even like 50% of Rudy Gobert is still just an elite defender in the especially during the regular season at this point. Yeah. And I have Ahmed Thompson on second team as well.
Yeah. I would just like to point out how good of a team we could put together if injuries weren't a factor, because you could have Wemby and like game limits, Wemby, Chet, Caruso, I don't know who else. There's got to
Hartenstein.
be yeah, right. Hartenstein. So we just quickly, because we're already running long. I think it's weird that we don't have OG. Tell me why OG is not on either of our teams.
Knicks are not a good defensive team. No,
But he's a great defensive player.
right, and the breadth of his responsibility is kind of insane when
Yeah.
you're looking at this, but the breadth of that responsibility is not translated to like long-standing defensive competence just yet. And like someone like, okay, I guess you could use, well, Dyson Daniels is on here, and Atlanta's had, when you're looking through the season, there's just been periods where their defense has been really good. He could be on here, like he's among the long list of honorable mentions. But I think if you're like, I'm gonna like the individual assignments that he's gonna take on, like those can be absurd, and like the stuff that he's gonna have to do is kind of like the quasi big hit points. I don't think he's actually as good at that stuff as other people believe. Like someone like a Bam can do that. A Tamani Kamara can do that. Draymond can certainly do that as the other one. So if you were to like put him in here over, I don't know, like Amen Thompson or like who would be the player that you bump?
That's the thing. I don't know. That's always the thing. It's like, well, what about this guy? Okay, who are you kicking off? And then it becomes a different conversation. It struck me that because I thought about him and I just couldn't get there.
There's
a
like
couple of
he is the reason the Knicks floor has not completely fallen out from under them, but he's not even been enough against better offenses. And I've honestly been just what you're getting from him on offense. I've been more impressed with than what you're getting from him on defense. So maybe that sort of skews my thinking a little bit.
Yeah.
We move on to Rookie of the Year. I have Jalen Wells, Steph Castle, and Donovan Clingan as my top three. You have Jalen Wells, Steph Castle, and Zach Edey as so it's like basically the same. And then we have our big at third. The Jalen Wells versus Steph Castle debate, I think, is the most fascinating of this. So what determined it for you?
Yeah, I firmly think that, and like this is a revelation. I think Castle has the highest ceiling in this class. I think he's the most likely all-star. I think he will be the best player in the class. But he's just it really has heated up, has had some good stretches lately. The full season numbers are just like he's not an efficient enough shooter or scorer. Like it's really damaging offensively. And it's just an efficiency question. I actually think he mostly makes good decisions. I like his feel. I think he's going to be like a smart passer. He is a good driver. He's a good, like his finishing, I think can be great. I'm talking about all these things like that will happen for him compared to Wells, who from the jump has just been a good starter for a good team. That's what it comes down to. Like he has tough defensive assignments. He's a good enough 3-point shooter to be honored by defenses. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes, plays super hard, is totally an additive component to his team, which is better than Castle's team. Castle, it's sometimes is a like legitimately negative influence on the bottom line. The Spurs don't care because they're not where the Grizzlies are in the standings, but like that is the distinction really to me. So Castle will be better. He's not better. He has not been better over the bulk of this season. That's the best case I can make. Is that where you come down on it?
Yeah, and you could make the case that, okay, he does more on offense, so it's harder than Jalen Wells, but Jalen Wells plays within his role on offense and is good at it. And I think no one in the league has spent more time guarding number one options than Jalen Wells this year. So it's just like I don't view him as all defense caliber, but the fact that he's a good defender in that role when going up against guys, when you look at he's listed at 6'7", so it's not like he's too small. His frame is just so slight compared to a lot of those guys, and he's always fun. Like even if you watch him guard in the post, it's not always going to end well. But like that dude is putting up a ton of fight, and the fact that there's been this equilibrium of good and productive for the entire year, and it's on a team that that might just be a title contender, and that doesn't have like. He's there out of necessity, but it's not bad. Like in the playoffs, it's okay. Like who's going to defend? Do you want him defending LeBron? No, probably not in the playoffs. Or Luka? No. But like he's just been good. And so I think that I'm with you that Steph Castle clearly has the higher ceiling, has probably had the higher pinnacles at like the moments, but like they're moments. And so stringing them together, just when it comes to Rookie of the Year, I think some people are probably going to like not even have him second because of the inefficiency on offense. Like even the rim finishing has dipped a little bit. So I'm with everything you said there. Edey versus Clingan was the thing that I was, and Risa Shea kind of all sprinkled in here for me. Edey has more minutes. He's shooting 36% from three. I just watched Donovan Clingan on defense, and this comes with the caveat that I was out on Donovan. Like, remember coming into the draft, I said, I don't know why they ever took him.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is a defensive caps lock force. He
Yeah.
moves his feet a lot better than I thought he was going to. As a help defender, like coming in and or the amount of guys he might cover on one play. And he's a real rim deterrent. And like, he's going to get shots sent back, but he's also going to dissuade players from ever going in there and taking looks at the rim.
Yeah, this was it was Edie or Klingon. I didn't really think that, like, Ricochet has kind of like Castle really heated up, like has shot it much better lately, is starting to really, I think he's going to be a good starter for a long time. I don't know what beyond that, maybe. For me, I went with Edie. The minutes are, he's got more minutes, but it's like 100. So it's, it's like a little over 1,000 for him, and a little like 940 something for Klingon. I think the difference, I think Klingon's a better defender. I think he will be a better defender, like shot blocker, rebounder, that kind of thing. I think Edie's offensive ceiling is like pretty interesting because of the shooting. And I think his offensive impact, partly because of that, has just been better. Like Klingon still, I don't know what Klingon is offensively.
His touch and finishing around the basket are not.
It feels like that's at best, that's going to be like a break even thing for him where he's like, okay. I don't know. Gobert, you could say similar things about, just like the guy can't catch the ball. He just moves awkwardly. That's kind of similar stuff. Edie's a little different. So I went with the offensive pluses for him over the defensive pluses for Klingon, but it's super close. Could have gone either way here.
I have wondered if Klingon will be at least a league average relative to position finisher once the Blazers, or if the Blazers ever have more space around him, because he's already a really good screener, as is Edie. And I also, one of the things that kind of came into focus, I know Edie's logged more minutes, and Klingon, I think, only just eclipsed 30 minutes per game, like 30 minutes in a single game for the first time.
Yeah.
And he did them consecutively. When I'm watching them, it's like Klingon's stamina at this point of the year feels like it might be a little better than Zach Edey's.
Interesting. I was going to say, I think Edie moves a little better. Like Klingon's just so big. Like he's one of those guys, like he stands out. Like, man, how do you ever get a shot over that guy? Or how do you ever move him out of rebounding position? I feel like Edie might be a little, like he's not as just bulky, I guess, but Edie's huge too. I feel like Edie moves a little better, but it's like, who cares? Because defensively, Klingon doesn't need to move that well.
North-south, I would agree, but laterally, it feels like it's close. Coming out of the draft, I said they should have just taken Zach Edey. He's going to be way better than Donovan Klingon.
We'll see.
Did you consider anybody else aside from these four that we've talked about?
Not real seriously, no.
I will say, when we were talking about the hardest awards, maybe it should be all rookie, because like kind of once you get past the top 3 or even top 5, it feels like anyone could be on here. So we have the same all rookie teams, right? Just the exact same one. So our all rookie teams, Jalen Wells, Steph Castle, Donovan Klingon first team, along with Zachary Ricochet and Zach Edey. Second team, where it gets very interesting. We have Yves Missi, Kyle Filipowski really has come on. Like the things he can do offensively are things like anything you want a big man to do, he can do. And then stuff that you want a wing to do, he will also do those things.
Which is a pretty big surprise to me. Like I just didn't know that he had that kind of versatility offensively.
Some of the stuff, putting the ball on the shot, okay, we knew that was going to be fine. But like the running the floor, like being able to put the ball on the deck. We have Alex Sarr, we have here. The numbers are not going to be kind to him. And like he kind of hit that. He went mid-season where it felt like he hit that apex. It was like he's hitting threes and like kind of looks like he's connecting better on screens. All that stuff is faded, basically. And the defensive numbers are not kind to him, but he is very active. He contests. He's in like the 99 percentile of shots, percentage of shots contested at the basket. I appreciate like the volume and the level of difficulty of his role. So it's sort of like a miniature Steph Castle case on offense, where I appreciate what Alex Sarr is responsible for on defense. And then I'm not going to say he's going to wind up being there, but like Bub Carrington, like building block. That dude is just, I don't care that he doesn't get to the basket. I just don't care.
He's, I'm trying to think of the comparison. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. It's kind of like, I think Carrington can be better than this, but it was like when the Warriors drafted Moody and Kuminga in the same class, where it's like one pretty high floor, not super high ceiling. That's Moody, that's Carrington. And then one like really low floor, very high ceiling. That's the Sarr Kuminga part of it. I think Carrington is going to be good. Like, I feel pretty confident that he'll be just the stuff he does, like his comfort on the ball. Like, I do think he needs to develop more of a sidestep pump fake into a 3 instead of like step in, because he takes a lot of longer twos that I don't love. But good passer, like good frame. Like I think he's gonna be solid. Sarr is just like, let me ask you about Sarr. Like the inefficiency is pretty glaring, like even at like a historic level as a center, like how poorly he finishes. Do you think that's because you hear, oh, he just needs to get stronger? Do you think it's that, or because where I'm at is like, I really don't know if he's got like the touch at like to ever be like a great. Some guys just never become good finishers. Like Bismack Biyombo got real strong. Like he's just doesn't have the finishing ability like when he's off balance. So like, where do you fall on Sarr? Like his potential, I guess, as like an efficient scorer.
I think he's gonna have to reach a point, and I don't necessarily know if there's someone on his team that can help him get there. Where it's, being stronger would help, but like, can you get these sort of just easy lobs to finish more above the rim? Because I think that he can at least do that. But like, does he have anyone on his team that like right now who would be their best? Their best passer is like Carrington. I mean, it's not Marcus. They have Brogdon on that team, so I guess he's there. But like, so I think it's going to matter who's the primary playmaker around him. And I think that there's real, you're talking about Bob Carrington, like he has real on ball poise and like his ability to get in the lane, get to his spot, not panic, maintain his dribble. Now he's hitting more of his jumpers, and he was always kind of hitting his pull up twos for this year. Yeah. The Sarr question is going to be fascinating there. I honestly think like he might be more of just like the pick and pop type big, and where you're getting most of your value from him long term is, oh, he's our defensive anchor and it's working out.
Which, if that's what he becomes, that would be great. Like, that's totally fine. I think if he's a spacer of any level and he can be, because I think we both agree his defensive ceiling's pretty high. Like, I think, and it's like pretty reachable. Like, I think he's going to be a good defensive player. If he can just be a spacer, that would be awesome. Because I don't think he's going to be a great finisher.
Can he even do like the Kristaps Porzingis thing at some point? Because we've seen his touch from three at points this season. It's where it's okay, you're throwing him the ball on the block. He's not really like posting up or attacking guys and like putting his shoulder and elbows into them. He's turning and firing. Like he could probably be, or at least that's not outside the realm of possibility for him, right? Doing something.
What I don't see is like just like a patient like craftsman like around the basket. Like that's not. And maybe as he gets stronger, that really will solve a lot of it. I'm pretty skeptical on his finishing, but like, again, he's played less than one season, so I'll chill out.
Yves Missi, what a find by the Pelicans this year.
Yeah.
Dude could be a monster on the offensive glass. He's gotten a lot, both him and I'll even say this, like the minutes I've seen from Karlo Markovic, got a lot better moving the floor, like around Zion. And the fact like Missi's not a floor spacer, so him kind of understanding where to be when Zion has the ball, big deal. I find myself wishing though that he would do like all the traditional big man stuff for the most part, like I don't know, 10 to 20% better.
Yeah, I mean, this is he's again, the angle on him is like what a like great find for the Pelicans that needed a guy at that exact position. But like his inclusion on an all rookie team is a pretty good illustration of like this actually is not a great rookie class. Like big surprise. We've been talking about it since before it was drafted.
Where do you land on Khalil Ware?
So I liked him a lot from the preseason where it's like, oh my God, this guy can, get passes at the top of the square, like might be able to shoot it too. That's kind of where I was like, I'm in now. I decided I was buying stock at that point.
Was that at the time we were all purchasing our Ryan Dunn stock because of what he was shooting?
Oh, absolutely. It was probably before that, actually. He was like a summer league, like holy shit guy, I feel like. But yeah, similar time frame. I still think offensively he can be a real weapon because of like he can get the DeAndre Jordan lobs that we're just like, oh God, no one's going up to get that. Like it's an impossible play to defend. He really does need to get stronger though. You see him get moved pretty easily. And then defensively, he looks like a rookie. It just isn't reacting quite quickly enough. I think like just as like the raw tools are, I think he might be something. I think he's going to be better than Missi. I think he's probably going to be better than Sarr, honestly. But like he's not there yet. I just kind of like the thumbnail sketch of what he could be a little better.
Yeah, the thumbnail sketch is a great way to phrase it because I think he's the player that you watch. I mean, on defense, you watch him and you're like, oh, okay, maybe not. But on offense, it's he's sub 30% from three, but you just think that he's going to space the floor. And it's, he's only like he's shooting about league average at the rim for someone his size. And it's just, well, you can kind of see because the way that he can get up there and like finish above the rim, that number is going to come up. He's even hit like some like little short mid rangers. And it's like, and he has some ball skills. So you just watch him and it's, oh, he's going to be good. The numbers, like some of them might support it, which is why it's like easy to put him here. But I think he's going to be good, but I wouldn't be ready to say, oh, he's going to be better than, would you say Zach Edey? Is that or
No,
Sarr?
I think he like Sarr and Misi. I think he could be better than both of those guys.
I think he can for sure. I guess I'm just not ready. He seems still too much of like this raw blank canvas.
Right. Well, there's a scenario where he's just kind of this guy, and it's like, so we got a JaVale McGee situation basically, where it's like he's gonna have a career, but he's not gonna be like a difference-making starter outside of maybe a year or two. That's possible too. Oh, most improved, man. We can have the conversation about what this award means. I'll just lay this out here. So you've got Trey Murphy III, who I already am annoyed that I didn't include on my ballot. Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham. I have Cunningham, Mobley, Christian Brown. Should I, because I feel like, I know you and Mort have talked about this, and I've definitely seen the just general discussion on like, should Cade even be a consideration for this award, and should second year players be a consideration? My quick 2 cents are, I think because this award does not have like flat criteria or exclusions for certain types of players, I tend to look at like how big is the improvement and how consequential is it. And so inherently that makes me skew more towards players that like elevate themselves from, in this case, very good to like great is an overused term, but to use Cade Cunningham, never been an all-star, is going to skip right past that step and be all-star and all NBA this year, and is now like pretty viably the cornerstone singular most important player on a team that could finish 4th in the East. Like that level of improvement is to me more consequential than, he's not included here, but someone like Norm Powell, who just has a scoring boost, gets better, but it's like, all right. Or someone that goes from like out of the league basically to good rotation player. Ty Jerome is the example of that. I just view the like the location of point A and point B in Cunningham's leap means more to me than it would at a lower level. So that's like my nutshell case. And if that's not what you think this award is, then I have no issue with Cade just not being on someone's ballot.
I tend to gravitate towards the level of difficulty on the leap. And so a lot of the times I think that then does dovetail with your focus on the consequence of that leap, where it's okay, what Ty Jerome, as an example, like the improvement is obvious. It made the Cavaliers deeper. It makes his free agency super interesting. Like he was working off such a low baseline that the player he came into, okay, the leap itself is massive, but how much of an impact is that having on the Cavaliers? No, to me, it matters more that Evan Mobley taking and making more threes, finishing through contact, making better reads as a passer, that fucking matters more. And it's a harder leap to make because he went, in my eyes, and you can disagree, which is also fair. In my eyes, he went from fringe all-star to an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
That's an incredible, it's like asking a team, like going from a 55 win team to a 65 win team versus going from a 25 win team to a 40 win team.
Like, that's exactly how I view it. It's like that's just harder. It's hard. Like a lot of players could go from 0 to Ty Jerome, or certainly more than could go from where Cade and Mobley were last year to where they are this year. That's exactly how I think of it.
I think where consequence and demonstration gets very interesting is a case like Trey Murphy, he has missed 16 games. So I have him here. We did note this last time we did this. I said, I'm just monitoring him. He hasn't played enough just yet, but if he's still eligible next time, I'm watching Trey Murphy, and the efficiency isn't always going to line up with this. You are watching just a visibly different player. Like the stuff he's able to do on the ball right now, the reads he's been able to make as a passer. And I think that leap is pretty big, even if the scoring leap itself, like just going above 20 points per game. But if you're going to have someone who can be like, oh, that's our third, like, I might even be selling him short. Oh, that's our third ball handler here, our third best offensive player. That's a huge freaking deal when you look at the stuff that he's able to do away from the ball, the gravity, the level of difficulty that he can do on those 3-pointers. The fact that he's been able to make this when the Pelicans are basically at one point injuries made them dog shit, and now they're trying to be dog shit on purpose. So yeah, the Zion, he's gotten better. They're winning the Zion minutes, but Trey Murphy is like, this could change the trajectory of the Pelicans.
Yeah.
It might even change who is the most important player in the Pelicans building right now. The eventual answer might be this year's first round pick. As of right now, you kind of need to default to Zion Williamson, but it might just be Trey Murphy. So that's why I have him here, because this was already a good player. He was valued as such in his extension, and he's now made this jump where it's, okay, this might be a fringe star. This could be like an all-star type player. So you have Cade and Mobley ahead of him. I have Mobley second and Cade third. So it's like, it's very similar. I went with Cade. It's interesting that you pick Cade to win it. I do feel like in that regard, I'm assuming like the stuff he's doing on defense is driving a lot of that.
It's some of that. It really is like, I just think like getting to, because maybe this is more personal opinion than like collective opinion. I don't know. I feel like I was pretty in line with what most people thought about him prior to this year, which is that like, I don't even know if he's actually like, I don't know that he should be a number one. Like, I'm not convinced of that coming into this year. Like actually like there are still room for him to improve. Like, he needs to be a better finisher at the rim. Like, he needs there's like little things that can still tick up, but like he had all that plus defensive questions, plus like, when's the shot gonna fall? Like, plus is like, how can you really run everything through him? Like, I didn't know that. And now it's like, yeah, not only that, but like you put a decent defense around him and like a couple shooters, and it's like the Pistons are, they could finish fourth. Like that's so to distinguish it from Mobley, and maybe that's not fair because Mobley's not asked to do what Cade is, but I don't think there's a realistic scenario where like offensively, so to answer your question, the defense helps a little, but it really is just Cade like removing doubts I had about like, is he the guy? Like, is he someone that can be the central offensive figure on a very good team? And that's like, that's kind of, that's not final boss level. Like, can you win a title as that guy as final? But it's like, that's a big step in that progression to me. And so not so much the defense, I guess, to answer the question.
I memean, I think the defense has been like a huge part of it for me. And I think you could look like the counting, if you went by the counting stats, like that would favor your pick. Like just having the Mobley versus Cade discussion, to where I guess I was higher on Cade to me than consensus coming into the year.
A lot of it.
So that could be doing it. You have Christian Brown, who is also, him and Ty Jerome are on my honorable mentions. Norm Powell would have maybe won this for me, but he's no longer eligible for the award. So Brown, what's interesting is he's playing so much better without Nikola Jokic on the floor this year. I still feel there's been improvement, but I just still feel like I'm watching too much of the same player a lot of the time, even when he's been saddled with a little bit more ball handling.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just not need to come around. Like I said, he's listed at like, along with Ty Jerome, is like, he's probably my top 5 or 6 for sure.
Yeah, this is like a lot of others. I mean, I had thought about Daniels here. I thought about Ty Jerome pretty hard here. I don't know
by the way, Daniels is interesting too, because so Ty Jerome has shown things just because we didn't see any of Ty Jerome. Right. Daniels, I feel like, has done basically everything that he did just in extended playing time. And that's what, like, it's how do you weight just an increase in opportunity with improvement, where rather than a functional expansion of his skill sets.
Yeah, that's probably really that's the argument against Brown, I think. Like for the record, I really didn't think that hard. Murphy is someone, I forget why I must have just looked at the games and decided I don't need to consider him, because he would be in the mix with Cunningham and Mobley for me. After those guys, I went with Brown, just like he doubled his scoring average. Like he just is more efficient on higher volume. He's like, his 2-point shooting is skyrocketed. He made less than half his twos last year. He's at like 63% this year on twos. And I think like it would have been easier for me to brush that off if the like, how good is he with and without Jokic had been like this dramatic thing. It's like, well, Jokic is just hand feeding him layups, basically. It's like, yeah, he is, but he's also like pretty good without Jokic. So that counts as something to me. Again, though, I wouldn't, if you had a strong argument for like Daniels, Jerome, Franz Wagner, if we could consider him like something like that, I would probably listen pretty hard.
I will say, I was prepared. If you need, do you need me to make a strong case again for Julian Champagny? The shooting has fallen off, which is kind of what, like, that made me second guess, but I could still make the Julian Champagny case like I did last
I
time.
know it would come from the heart, and that's the important thing.
This one's mine. Sixth man of the year. I thought Peyton Pritchard was going to run away with this for me. I have DeAndre Hunter at 1, Malik Beasley at 2. He has started 14 games this year, so still eligible. And then Peyton Pritchard is still 3 for me. Like DeAndre, I think what's doing a lot of heavy lifting for DeAndre Hunter is not just that he's done it now for 2 teams, but like he's had to scale his role to a different team and he's become mega important. And midseason, he goes to the Cavs and they're just slaughtering people when he's playing at the 4 next to Mobley.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate what he's done as a scorer, as a defender. Malik Beasley's been a breath of fresh air for Detroit's offense. And this is another year, by the way. I don't think the results are always good, but he's on a defense now that like the Bucks had noise there last year. His role was outsized. Now you've kind of put him in a more role that he would be suited for, but the effort, the engagement from him these past 2 seasons on defense, I wanted to shout him out for. And then Pritchard's case is just Pritchard's case. Like he's not shooting 90% from 3 like he was, for the first half of the year, but he's still killing it.
Yeah, just 42% on 10 attempts per 36. Like
That's it. That's all.
Yeah, that's all. Pritchard for me was just, it wasn't easy because I do think like Hunter has just been in 2 different spots, like indispensable, like highly valuable at a highly valuable position. And I would say if part of your 6-man calculus is should this guy close games, then Hunter probably is the pick because like Pritchard's just not, on most nights going to be someone that closes for Boston. Now, if he were on a team not as good as Boston, would that be different? Probably, but Hunter's on the Cavs and the Cavs are better than the Celtics this season. So, that's another point in Hunter's favor. Pritchard just feels like the quintessential 6-man to me though, who just comes in, ups the tempo, fires threes, like disrupts defensively. It's just kind of like the scrappiness aspect of a 6-man that I enjoy, like the tempo changer.
Do you know what was tough when we picked him? Because I think this is the 3rd consecutive time you've had him. So you've been consistent. What I struggled with the first 2 times is I always want to value the bench player that I think could be a closing lineup staple.
Exactly. Yeah, that's Hunter.
Right. And it's Beasley fits that bill more, but that's not necessarily in the spirit of the award because a 6th man, if in theory, I know this isn't how it works necessarily in today's NBA, but like your starting lineup is supposed to be your best lineup, and that's what you almost ride or die with. When we know things about matchups or how people like to make it easier to stagger. So, but like that's still in the back of my mind where it's like that was kind of one of the strongest case for Emmanuel Quickly during his Knicks days. Like, yeah, he's coming off the bench, but look at what he does when he fills in as a starter or as a closing unit member.
That's right. Yeah. Oh man, I remember that discussion. I have Reed 3rd. It's just like he's another guy that's like he just probably is one of their 5 best players, and he should start and close sometimes. You're going to cite the Julius Randle. They're undefeated for the last 5 years.
To be fair though, if you had George Ruthers, Naz Reid wouldn't even be eligible for this award.
That's true. Yeah. Let's see what else. Yeah, Beasley. I have no problem with Beasley. I'm trying to think of anybody else I would have thrown in there.
He's dropped down a little bit, but like as an honorable mention, I still think a Nickeil Alexander-Walker for sure would deserve an honorable mention there.
Even Ty Jerome, we've talked plenty about him, but he's been phenomenal off the bench.
Karis LeVert too. Let's just keep naming Cavs.
Former Cavs.
Someone from the Grizzlies.
Yeah, like 4 guys off of the Grizzlies bench would be good. I think maybe like if Houston had. Who'd it be on Houston if they?
Ahmed Thompson was in my top 3 last time. But it's just now
right. They just have had injuries to where enough guys have become, and like Easton just hasn't played enough, but he would have been someone interesting to think about.
We're probably forgetting someone major here.
I'm sure, but
I will say, and I actually think that he should probably be starting, but like Deuce McBride was someone just another name that I at least looked at, but that's not really a surprise. Take us through, please, Coach of the Year.
Coach of the Year, you and I both have Kenny Atkinson at 1, and then we have, in your case, JB Bickerstaff 2, who is not Chauncey Billups, just in case anyone's confused by about who coaches the Pistons. Mark Daignault 3. I just flipped Daignault and Bickerstaff. I have Atkinson 1, Daignault 2, Bickerstaff 3. Could have gone. So let's start at the top. Like Did you entertain any serious? I mean, we thought about this, but like it was Atkinson pretty comfortably, right?
So the argument is, if you don't want to just focus on looking at how many games they're about to win, is
Yeah.
that if I went into it this time saying, well, what would my case against Atkinson be? And I think that you could argue the Detroit Pistons contending for fourth in the East is more surprising than the Cavs contending for first, based off the talent there. But when
Okay.
you watch them on offense, they are a different team. Like, he's figured out ways to unlock Evan Mobley. The staggering patterns, the lineup patterns have just been better. The way that they can use a Max Strus, the way that they've used Ty Jerome. I just think that he has had, even if you don't think he's necessarily responsible for what they've been able to do with some of their best defensive lineups, even the Donovan Mitchell toggling between two existences, it feels like the Cavs offense is different. There's more variability there in a good way. There's principles that you didn't necessarily see them maintain under JB Bickerstaff the entire time he was there, except when they were, JB Bickerstaff did his best offensive work in Cleveland, I will maintain, when they were at their most injured. So it's almost kind of the same thing with most improved player, to take a team that was already excellent and then just make them a juggernaut, like, that matters.
Right. I think that a related piece of that argument, because that is the sort of the crux of my thinking, is that like, well, if you're arguing for Bickerstaff over Atkinson, you'd say, look at the talent on this Cavs roster. Like, how hard is the job really? Like, they were going to win 50 something games with like, like a notepad in the head coach's chair. Like, so they just would have figured it out. But at some point, I do think you deserve credit for, like, one, deploying that talent in the best way, because that's like the final step in like going from good to great. And the Cavs are just historically like a great regular season team so far. The other thing I think too is at some point you also need to be credited for, like, Ty Jerome is a thing now. DeAndre Hunter changed teams midstream, still awesome. Like, yeah, okay, maybe that's just Jerome and Hunter. Okay, well, Mobley has played very differently. Like, maybe that's just Mobley, but you keep going down the list with enough of those bullet
Karis
points.
LeVert, when he was there.
Karis LeVert was as good as he's ever played. Okay, well, he just made threes. Okay, well, let's continue. Like Darius Garland, he's back. Looks comfortable. Whatever strife there was between him and Donovan Mitchell and the rest of the team, squashed. Jared Allen, never an issue from last year. Remember, like, this team we had them blown up like at the end of last season.
Right.
So you go down enough bullet points that you could credit to someone else. And eventually when there are enough of them, you have to just acknowledge, like, I think the guy pushing the buttons is pretty good at this, like that. And I think that's maybe just the roundabout Atkinson case I would make.
I would say JB Bickerstaff, if you put him one, I won't fight against you. I think it has to be built around the Detroit Pistons have no business being a top 10 defensive team with their personnel. That's like his strongest. Like, the stuff Kate's doing is great. A lot of that I feel like is they understood, like, oh, shooting. Look at what this can do. But like the improvement that Jalen Duren has made kind of over the past like month or so, and the way that Cade Cunningham himself is defended. I mentioned Malik Beasley before. So, but the other thing that he's doing, which Atkinson hasn't really had to do, he's juggling development. Like, Ron Holland is still getting reps on a team that is good. And like Jalen Duren, how many teams, if they were as good as the Pistons are or were like a month or two ago, when Jalen Duren maybe wasn't at his best, might have gone away from that. So like kind of figuring it out while also like it's not like they did anything with him and they insert Dennis Schroeder midstream, the way he was using Jaden Ivey before he was injured. Like, so JB Bickerstaff has, like, I don't even know if I had him in my top 3 last time, but I actually think he has a really strong case for number one.
I think so too. And the simplest version is like, what did they win 14 games last year? The roster's not that different. Like, it really is not. I mean, a couple key guys, but like, they're going to win 30 more than that. Like, no problem. That's the leap is pretty substantial. And honestly, if you wanted to detract from Bickerstaff, I think he could, and could easily win this. You would point to like, this team was like grossly like mismanaged and poorly coached last year. So they actually weren't that bad. They probably should have won 30 games or something, but like that would just be if you really don't want Bickerstaff to win, that's the argument you make. I'm not making that argument.
We both have Dagnall in the top 3. I just think he's an excellent coach. The Thunder have dealt with injuries. He throws out creative lineups. People made fun of him for the perma sub thing with Dylan Jones, but like constantly thinking and gaming the system that way,
Mhm.
I also think that he has been like, he's pulled some night, like even Alex Caruso missed his time. The fact that he was working in AJ Mitchell at the beginning of the year before AJ Mitchell got injured. The coach, there's always like, you could make a case for a ton of coaches in almost any given year. I struggled with JJ Redick. I have
Yeah.
him listed in my honorable mentions because I like the Lakers. I don't want to say I don't believe in them, but it's just like they dealt with some injuries and the defense was okay. It never plummeted. Now they're getting like some better defensive talent out while also exchanging Max Christie and Anthony Davis, and the defense gets better. Grant, they are second in points allowed per possession against top 10 teams. I watched them, and at this point, I'm still concerned about the big man rotation. And I think that their model, I was like, there's no way this holds up against like good teams in the playoffs, right? But as I just circle back, this is what it is against top 10 offenses. And you could say so-and-so missed games. Like, all right, the Lakers didn't have Jared Vanderbilt, who's still just all over the place defensively. I did not have the Lakers in contention for number 2 in the Western Conference. And so he, like, maybe because the Thunder they're historically good, but we probably could have forecasted that. Like, that is his case over Mark Daigneault for me.
Yes. I would add too, like, degree of difficulty matters. And like, think of just the scrutiny is one, like the size of the market, the expectations. Coaching LeBron is just not, I mean, in many ways it's easy, but in many ways it's also hard. And that's before considering like the brawny side of it. Like, just think of the other stuff that he's had to navigate, this like seismic midseason trade that really does fundamentally change, like, not just how you play, but like the literal hierarchy of your team and organization when you bring Luka in. Like, there's been a lot of stuff to deal with that has very little to do with basketball. And then like, and so he's navigated that incredibly well. The basketball side of it, like, I'm never going to get over all the clips of how they guarded Jokic in ways that like nobody's really done before. Like, it's like clever doubles off the ball, like not like forcing him to catch it far away from the basket, like doing all the stuff you should do, but just like more like, there's no blueprint for stopping Jokic, but the Lakers like kind of put something out there that I think a lot of teams are going to emulate come playoff time. So just like tactically, I think he's pretty clearly like very, very like high end. So yeah, it was hard to leave him off. Maybe he deserves to be on it. Maybe the Lakers will continue to like, with LeBron out, they've had some struggles now, but like maybe they'll close on a big run and we'll just have to ultimately put him in the top 3.
I have this in my notes it was an Atkinson and Bickerstaff note. The Cavs are first in points scored per possession out of timeouts, and the Pistons are third. Like, that's another feather in JB Bickerstaff's cap. Any other coaches that you thought? I have one that we had Taylor Jenkins on this list for a while. The Grizzlies have been kind of like all over the place lately. I don't think this was the plan, but like Jordi Fernandez deserves a shit ton of credit for what's going on in Brooklyn, because even they've given him less talent and they did so earlier than some other teams would have. And he has just outperformed at every turn. Like, the offense was gangbusters to start the year in the half court, running through Dennis Schroeder. You get rid of Dennis Schroeder, you get rid of Ben Simmons eventually leaves, Dorian Finney-Smith eventually leaves. Okay, you're not good on offense anymore. This team's going to fight its ass off defensively every single night. Again, they're not good enough, and I don't know that he could be coach of the year, but the Nets are actively trying to field a team that won't be competitive, and he has consistently just defied that at every single turn.
I agree. I think my thought whenever I watch Brooklyn is like, why is this team so hard to play against? Like, they just have no business being, you said competitive, like they should be easy to play against. Like, they have all these shortcomings in the playmaking department. They're usually small and or unskilled up front. Like, these wings and guards are just like outside of Cam Johnson. It's like, who is this person that's playing 30 minutes tonight? And they have no business being difficult to play. And they seem to always be hard to play against, at least, for 3 quarters or whatever. Like, they never, they're kind of weirdly relentless. It's just, you have to credit that to the coach. Cause like, how easy would it be for this, like almost everyone on this team to be like, why are we trying? So yeah, credit to him for that.
Anybody like deep cuts? I still think Tyronn Lue is a good coach. Joe Mazzulla feels a little underappreciated at this
Michael
point.
Malone, like just the usual suspects. I don't know what you do with Kerr. Probably don't put him on the short list, but Eric Spoelstra, are we pretending Eric Spoelstra is not a great coach? Like, all the shit that's gone wrong in Miami has little to do.
There's a lot of complaints among like Heat media and analyst podcasters that he just doesn't adjust enough. And I guess maybe I'm too Eric Spoelstra pilled, but what do you want him to like? Who do you want him to adjust with? Like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, tell me the lineup switch that's going to solve the issues there. No,
I wish the Rockets' offense was a little bit more inventive, but like Ime Udoka, like putting together this defense with your base rim protector or backline guy and Alperen Şengün is just like he's not the word. I'm not saying that he sucks defensively, but figuring out the right way to use him, like that matters a great deal.
And I think Jamal Mosley is someone that we've talked about in past editions where it's still credit for the defense and just like how hard they play, but it's like the offense is the emphasis on, I mean, the lack of emphasis on shooting threes and playing fast. Like there's some offensive stuff that's like, this feels like a systemic choice and that's got to go to him. And that's not great.
I also have Rick Carlisle on my long list, but I sometimes think that because when you read Caitlin Cooper and she's pointing out like all these things that it makes me higher on Rick Carlisle. I was like, wow, he's trying a bunch of different shit.
No, I think he belongs with like the Kerr and Malones and Spoelstras. Like he's a really good NBA coach. It's just that, this ain't the year for him.
We do not do clutch player of the year until the end of the season. So we end with everyone's favorite award, Grant, executive of the year. You want to take us through it?
Yeah. Sam Presti won. I don't know if we've had him first. He's been in the running all year. It's just,
we both had him first last time at the midway.
Okay. So I think, I guess Mitchell probably would have been hurt at that point, but like the Mitchell pick, insane. The Caruso trade, great trade. The machinations to be able to bring on Hartenstein, awesome. Like that
deals for Wiggins and Joe. I mean, the Wiggins deal especially looks like highway robbery.
He doesn't miss basically, like other than Gordon Hayward, and that's not this year. So no misses this year. Number two,
we didn't point this out when we were regating the trade deadline. Even that Gordon Hayward trade served the purpose of setting them up to have the cap space to go get Isaiah Harden.
That's true. Yeah. Rob Pelinka's at 2 for both of us. That feels like a surprise.
Because he kept a secret. That's pretty much
because someone came to him and he said, okay.
Like don't tell anybody. And he said, okay.
I just don't know what to do with him. Like how he got the guy.
The JJ Redick hire.
Sure. Yeah. That's
okay. But I don't know. I don't, beyond that, it's sort of just like no changes they made personnel wise aside from Luka over the offseason. They didn't make a ton of changes to begin with. But to his credit, and also, was he helped along by their doctors who failed to Mark Williams?
That's the other thing. I was like, is he here if the Mark Williams trade goes through? Because that's a bad trade that you shouldn't make. Like, I don't know. He's just charmed, man. You
could say he's charmed. And like, by the way, I had Nico Harrison third at the halfway point.
Where do you have him now? Fourth?
Here's the thing. He didn't even have to give up the second first-round pick to get Luka. And so it's, okay, Nico Harrison and Patrick Dumont might be out of their fucking minds, but he used that to his advantage and was like, well, like, we can't give you. I'm assuming they at least asked for it. Like, there had to be some level of negotiation there. So you just have to, and look, they didn't let it get out until like the fact that LeBron and Clutch and Anthony Davis himself, also Clutch, seemed legitimately surprised. You can get into whether that's right, but like that's like here's the other thing. Could you have been compelled to go to LeBron first? Is it like it was such an easy decision for us, but when you're dealing with those personal relationships and knowing that everyone thinks that LeBron is this shadow GM, this kind of proves that he's not. And it like to not inform your best player and then it kind of tells your best player, LeBron shouldn't have a problem with this because I think this improves his chances as he enters his twilight. But like he didn't consult LeBron. Yes, it was an easy move, but the dynamics don't always work that way. So I'm just trying to, he traded for Luka without giving up the farm and telling anyone. I find that to be the most hysterical thing, that the NBA is such a gossip factory that it's this big deal that they asked the Lakers to keep it quiet. And Jeannie Buss like, and we did.
Can you, I don't know. I think I would want the audio, but the transcript would be fine. Cause I think it was an in-person conversation the way, I don't know, maybe it was a phone call where Luka's being offered and Dallas asked for both of those firsts and Presti and Pelinka goes, no, I don't think we can do that. Like the gall to say like, oh, we're going to need to take that pick off the table or no dice. Like there he either is like the greatest gambler that's ever lived, or like somehow I just, can you, like, I can't, that conversation like will never make sense in my brain, where it's like they're negotiating and he gets Dallas to still agree for, without that second first in the pack. Like, I just want to know what that conversation was. Like, how did that possibly
Right.
happen?
And if you wanted to leave him off this list because you think it was that mindless of a decision, I guess it's fine, but you would have to then believe or prove that he had nothing to do with it. Like, they just came, this was the package, and he said yes.
Right. Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess in Mavericks land, we can't rule that out.
We cannot rule that out. Our third picks are different. You could go this with this choice or several others probably here. I have Mike Dunleavy, who was like, and you have Trajan Langdon for the Pistons. I think like I had Dunleavy high after the offseason and the 12-3 starts. Like, look at all these guys he signed. What genius? Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, and then like basically none of those guys matter anymore and or are gone. And then he fell way off, and now he's back because he made the Jimmy Butler trade. And the guy they drafted in the 50s, Quentin Post, is like actually an impactful like rotation player. So it's been a real roller coaster of a season for Mike Dunleavy and Executive of the Year is what I'm trying to say. What make the Trajan Langdon case, because it's pretty strong.
Yeah, what do I have to look at the Pistons? But look, there were some quite like I still don't think they got good runway out of the Tim Hardaway Jr. trade, especially with in my notes, by the way, it says like the only thing I really didn't like is the Tim Hardaway Jr. trade because now Quentin Grimes is a board. We didn't mention him in MIP, but even dating back to what he was doing at Dallas, he's definitely on like the long list of those players. Tim Hardaway Jr. has worked out for them. The Malik Beasley signing has been great for them. I think that he got creative in ways to, I don't know if Ron Holland's going to end up being the right pick. He is one of the, I have the least, like, that dude fucking plays hard.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm dropping so many F-bombs in this podcast, but
You're animated.
I still don't necessarily understand what he's going to be. So that might be a pick worth relitigating. But what I really look at, by the way, people panned Cade Cunningham's not a no-brainer max guy. That's a stance he could have held because Cade Cunningham isn't his dude. So like you deserve credit for negotiating, like giving Cade Cunningham the money and look at what he's done. The JB Bickerstaff hire works out. I think he ended up like they got really creative this season on the trade market to where Dennis Schroeder's still not the most efficient version of himself in Detroit. I went through this with Mort the other day. They found a way to give Cade Cunningham more in-game breaks on offense because of Dennis Schroeder. And now you have in the wake of Jaden Ivey's injury, someone who has helped you during those minutes when Cade Cunningham is on the bench. And I still believe that this will pan out. I'm waiting this. The Bobby Klintman acquisition, I fave it.
I think to Langdon's credit, like you might say that, well, it's actually easier to come in and just look at a situation where you made like none of the decisions that produced the roster, like with fresh eyes, and it's easy to evaluate who needs to stay, who needs to go. I think actually his job's harder because like it's difficult to just resist the clean house urge and be like, I just want my guys here. I'm just gonna, whether it's Cade not getting the max or we're gonna move Ivy and Duren and we're gonna like, I want to start over because this is my team now. And like, I think that's a hard impulse to resist. And you see a lot of executives come in and like, that's what happens and mistakes get made. So I think the degree of difficulty actually is like fairly high for him, even though it may not seem like it. Because like he could have just come in and like, we're good. This team's terrible. It's been terrible for 20 years. Like, why are we keeping any of the pieces around? And he didn't do that.
And also there's the level of, okay, like we thought the Tobias Harris contract was just so stupid. And it's okay. It was an overpay. But like Tobias Harris has been really useful for them when he's been healthy. And it was honestly, Simone Fontecchio is the one that's been a disappointment. And we thought that deal was spectacular in real time.
One of these days, Fontecchio is going to pop. We're going to be right.
Those are our awards. Let us know who you would be picking in the comment section below with all your picks, what's your disagreements, what you liked about it. Compliments are always nice too. With that out of the way, though, before we get out of here,
money.
It is back. Stat padding, guess a player by popular demand. At least everyone claims they want it back, so I'm now putting the onus on our subscribers. Go join our Discord. I will create, what are they called? Sub servers or whatever, where you can submit into a form, guess a players that Grant will read to me, or there'll be a separate one that I can read to Grant. We will continue when we do these to say, okay, go put them in there, but I'm not going to tag and ask for them like we used to. If you want guess a player back, give us guess a players. And Mike H was kind enough to have a shit ton of guess players in the deck for us. Grant, before we go into this, how are you feeling?
I feel nervous, out of
Right.
practice. I feel like there's a good chance that people could use players we've already done and I won't remember it and I'll be wrong. And that just the shame of that will be difficult to live with. How do you feel? It's been a long time.
We haven't done it at all, I think, during this regular season. Like ever since we did the off-season look aheads is when we kind of phased it out. So I was fine because I was putting you under the spotlight. I didn't care. Like you were the one under pressure, but now I find out that you have some for me. So now I am a little bit nervous.
You're being surprised in addition to all the normal stress of guess a player.
All right. So let's alternate. Do you want to start? I'll give you the clues here.
Okay. Give me the clues. I'm ready.
There are 7 clues here. So let's see how you do. Clue number 1. I was drafted by the Warriors in 2023.
Well, I mean, shouldn't I just get this? Or should I? Now I'm already drawing a blank. 2023. I forgot how much dead air this creates when I just sit here thinking about
Which I will not be cutting out because I feel like that has to be part of the guess a player experience is us thinking our way silently through it. And if you're watching on YouTube, you could look at Grant like furrowing his brow and fiddling with his hat. But if you're on audio, that's rough stuff.
Brandon Pajemski.
2003?
I thought you said 23.
No, 2003.
Oh.
Would you care to guess again?
No, I'm going to stick with it. I think that's right. Was he born in 2003? Probably not. 2003 Warriors draft pick. I can't remember off the top of my head, so I will ask you for another clue.
Okay. Clue number 2. At the time I was drafted, many thought I could be a draft and stash player, but I came stateside right away on a mediocre Warriors squad.
Oh, okay. Came stateside, mediocre Warriors squad, draft and stash in 2003. This is way later than that, but is it Kuzmic?
It is not Kuzmic.
Okay. I don't know what year that guy was picked. I'm gonna throw one more out there. What's his name? Yuri Welsh.
It is not him either.
Okay.
Pulling names out of your ass, though, I respect it. Clue number 3. I was not a very efficient scorer as a rookie, only putting down shots at a 41% clip.
So he played as a rookie in 2003. What's that guy? This is another too late one. What's his name? Like Yazakevicius or something? Starts with a J.
That sounds like it might be a person. It's not this person, though.
I feel like I may be being led down. Mike likes to use Euro players, though, so I don't think it's going to be like I don't know, someone from Asia or Africa or something.
That's another reason to join our Discord is Grant will give you a psychological profile, his proprietary metrics.
I like to try to get inside your head. I need to know whose picks I'm trying to figure out. All right, I don't have it. That's pretty clear.
You want me to move on to the next clue then?
Please.
Clue number 4. After 3 seasons of being a bit player, in 2006, 2007, I scored a career high 11.1 points per game.
Mikhail Petrus?
You got it. Yeah. After 4 clues. Nice job. Here are the other clues. Clue 5 was this season led me to signing with the Magic, where I was a good role player, but showed in the playoffs that I could not guard Kobe. Clue 6, after my 3-year tenure with the Magic, I bounced around to the Suns, Celtics, and Raptors before playing in Puerto Rico and finishing my career in my native France. Mm-hmm. And clue number 7, my nephew was a prospect in the 2024 draft.
Oh, interesting. 2 things about Mikhail Petrus. Just like had moments as a rookie. Now I remember where it's like, this guy is going to be an all-star wing, like 2-way wing. Just had the perfect frame. Also, never seen anyone step out of bounds more when like in a triple threat about to attack a defender. Constantly stepped out of bounds. That's my Mikhail Petrus scouting report.
That's why people come to HardwoodKnocks for the obscure scouting reports of players from 2 decades ago, basically.
And that Brandon Pajemski was not drafted in 2003. That's the other reason. All right. I have one for you. This is also from Mike. Clue number 1. I was drafted out of UNLV in 1999. I love how it's all of your clues seem to include college stuff, and and you just never know it. So
I know.
All right. I was drafted out of UNLV in 1999 ahead of future Knicks legend Pablo Prigioni and current Pistons GM Trajan Langdon, who went 11th. So that's just 2 other guys in the 99 draft. Any UNLV from 99 guys you can think of?
1999. 1999. How far back is it? Who could I should take a stab in the dark with somebody. No, he didn't go to UNLV. See, I know where Michael Sweetney went to college, and I don't think that was 99 either.
Georgetown? Was he?
Yeah, he was Georgetown.
All right.
Yeah, I don't even have a guess. Keep going.
All right. Despite clue number 2, despite missing 31 games as a rookie, I still made all rookie second team.
Despite missing 37. So he was 1999 second team all rookie is what we've established out of UNLV.
Yep.
God, this is tough for someone who did not. Well, how young was I in 1999? Holy fuck. I feel like I should throw out like a name. Who was drafted like in 99? Every player I'm thinking, it's too late.
Right. It's hard too because he hasn't given you anything about like the type of player this is, so you don't even know like how to narrow it down.
Yeah, I just need to think of like the time like who entered the league around 99. None of the players that are springing to mind, I know they didn't go to UNLV. So yeah, carry on, please.
All right. Clue 3. As a sophomore, I averaged 17 points a game. So from all rookie second team to 17 points in his second year.
In the year 2000.
Still tough, yeah.
Did Steve Francis go to UNLV?
He went to Maryland.
That is not.
But I think you're in the neighborhood, like age-wise.
17 points. I have no idea. So at that time, thinking of that time period, could this just be a big for someone who scored that many points in 1999?
I have confidence in the like clue 5 to 8 range. There are 10. I think you'll start dialing in.
All right, hit me with clue number 4.
Clue 4 is in year 4, I made my first All-Star appearance, averaging 21.2 points a night. So now you know he's an All-Star, drafted in 99 out of UNLV.
Is this like Rashard Lewis?
No, it's not Rashard Lewis. I think he.
Why are you thinking about it? Isn't the name? Are you trying to figure this out with me?
No. I don't know why I like looked quizzically up. It's not Rashard Lewis.
Desmond Mason?
Not Desmond Mason.
All right, I got nothing. Keep going.
Clue 5. I made the All-Star game every year from 05 to 07, bringing my total to 4. So now we're in perennial All-Stars territory.
I'm going to look like such an asshole when I don't get this.
This is still, I wouldn't have got it yet. Like, no chance.
All right, so he made 4 All-Star teams between 2004 and 2007.
Yeah.
Is that anybody's golden age of basketball?
Probably not. That was a rough stretch. Well, I don't want to give it away. I'll just say, there was something interesting happening for one team in that stretch of years.
Ooh, I still don't have it. Keep going.
All right. Clue 6. After the 2007 season, I was traded for Shaq.
So Shaq in 2007, that's him going to the Heat. Lamar Odom?
No.
Brian Grant?
No.
The fuck else was involved in that trade? Do I have the wrong time? Is that not the Shaq?
I think you have Shaq going the wrong direction.
From Phoenix to Phoenix? Where'd he go after Miami? Oh my God. I was traded for Shaq. This is the timeline that Shaq was traded from Miami, right? That would have been his 4th team. He wasn't already on his 4th team. I mean, in 2007, was he?
I mean, I'm not sure I'm allowed to answer your question.
Yeah, you can. I'm talking aloud right here. I was traded for Shaq. That's going to be the one but Shaq was traded a few. Yeah, keep going.
Okay. Clue 7. I played 1 year with the Heat. So, this was someone going to the Heat for Shaq. Before going to the Raptors at the deadline for Jermaine O'Neal and Jamario Moon.
It's going to bug the shit out of me. I don't remember who Phoenix traded for Shaq. I don't even know. I'm saying Phoenix. I'm not even sure if that's Shaq's 4th team. Let me see. Because there's the Cavs, there's the Celtics. Where else was he? I still don't have it.
So Shaq goes Magic, Lakers, Heat, Suns. Then is it Cavs, Celtics after that? I can't remember. Something like that.
keep going.
All right. Clue number 8. In the offseason, I signed a 5-year, $39 million deal with the Mavs.
Brian Cardinal?
That's a great pull, but
He
it's
was
not
never an
Brian
all-star,
Cardinal. Terrific
I
pull.
just remember him getting a ridiculous contract from the Mavs. All right, there's a former all-star, though. And this was what year did he sign with the Mavs? Sorry.
I guess we would be in. So
Oh, they didn't give a year, then you don't need
well,
to.
you can reverse engineer it. Traded for Shaq in 07. So with the Heat, and I guess that'd be 07, 08. Ends up with the Raptors. And then so you're in the like 09, 10 range when he gets to Dallas on that 5-year, $39 million deal.
Jason Williams? Was he? He was never on the Suns. I'm just naming random players at this point.
I think you might get it. Well, you got 2 clues left. I think you're going to get it, but it might be tight.
So it was a 5-year, $39 million deal with the Mavs. I'm trying to think, and I feel like my thought process might just be in the wrong realm, so I'm never going to get this. Because I'm trying to think of, okay, who played for the Suns, the Heat, and the Mavericks is what I'm trying to figure out in my head. And the Raptors too.
It's tough. The Raptors one is like, I would not have, if you made me list this guy's teams, I think I would have probably forgotten the Raptors.
Yeah, I guess keep going, please.
Clue 9. I was part of the Mavs title team.
Well, Mavs won the title in 2011. Oh no, they also won it. Well, this is so 2011
We're in 11. This is referring to 11. Yeah.
Deshaun Stevenson?
No,
he was never an all-star. It doesn't matter with me. Sean Marion?
That's it. Sean Marion. You got it.
Why was I naming players that were clearly never all-stars too? So bad.
Because that's why this game is hard, is because you can't keep all that in your head at the same time under pressure. All right. You got it. So the last clue was in 2014, I became the first NBA player in history with 15,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, 1,000 blocks, and 500 threes.
That would have been like,
it was, credit Mike, because there's really no mention at all of the 7 seconds or less, like Suns stuff, which is what I was referring to. And like, there was something interesting going on at this stage.
I never would have guessed because the Raptors thing, I never would have guessed Sean Marion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Raptors thing, like even the Shaq trade, I would have struggled to get there. That's why it's a good clue.
At least I got that the Heat I first didn't get it, but at least I got that was around the time that it was the Heat, because he was just all over the place.
That's where you fall off in the college knowledge. You always make up for it in remembering who was traded for who, which I don't.
Well, what do you say? One more each?
All right.
Are you ready? Strap in. Guess a player number 2 for Grant. Clue number 1. Despite leading my college program to a national title, my coach, Jim Calhoun, was under consistent scrutiny from local media for, quote unquote, choosing me and teammate Caron Butler over Ryan Gomez coming out of high school. Fun fact, both of us would have better careers than Ryan Gomez.
Yeah. Okay. Teammate with Caron Butler. I'll just guess Ben Gordon.
It is not Ben Gordon.
See, I don't have great college knowledge either, but I think we're in UConn territory. So I hope, Ben, if I'm wrong on that, that's embarrassing, but I'll take the next clue, please.
Clue number 2. I was a lottery selection in 2004 and went to a young team that had no idea what they were trying to build.
Kemba Walker?
No,
that's too late. Who else went to UConn? Jake Voskuhl. Is that it?
No, but that's such a good pull.
Well, I don't know how. I can't even think of any other UConn players. Damn it. Also, Jake Voskuhl probably played in like the 90s, and I can't.
It's hard because you have to know. It's not just a matter of knowing. Like, you have to know the time period of college.
Well, Caron Butler should anchor it a little bit, and I'm thinking, but he was like around. He was early 2000s, I think, when he came into the league. But oh man. So it's okay. I don't have it. I'll take another clue, please.
Clue 3. I won bronze with the U.S. Olympic team before ever playing in the NBA.
Oh. Emeka Okafor.
Correct.
Okay.
You did that on guess 3 of.
I should have got that on. Went to a team that had no idea what it was doing.
Your hit rate was Very impressive here. So clue 4, I averaged a career high in points as a rookie with 15. Injuries are a bitch as they cost me much of the next 2 seasons. That was clue 5. Clue 6, in 2009, I was traded for Tyson Chandler in a money-saving move. Clue 7, I was part of New Orleans for 3 years until I was moved to Washington for a year. What is that? Injuries put my career on hold. Clue 8, I would miss 4 seasons trying to get cleared before ultimately returning in 2018 with the now Pelicans. Clue 9, you might think I'm a bust, but I averaged 12 points and 9.7 rebounds for my career.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, so I think he was the Dwight Howard draft. I think, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Well, boy, this is dating us. I can remember at some point really early in that process writing or like kicking around the idea of like, what if Okafor actually was the better pick? Like, because at some point I think Okafor was out, like had a 15 and something in his rookie year. You said,
yeah, he won Rookie of the Year over Dwight. He averaged 15, 11 rebounds, and then 1.7 blocks per game. Shot 44.7% on twos. He would never have won it in today's NBA. My God,
not good. All right, I will offer you. I feel like we've done this one, but it's been long enough to where I'm sure you don't remember it. So here we go.
Well, we know my hit rate is I'll either one shot kill it or not get it at all, I think is the.
I don't hate your odds here, even though it does reference college for the first several clues. All right. Clue 1. I was a dance craze during my freshman season.
I was a dance. Is that referring to like the March Madness tournament? I was a dance craze.
I can't. I'm just reading what's on the sheet here.
Can you read it back?
I was a dance craze during my freshman season. I would say I'll editorialize. This person was.
It doesn't. I don't even have the year. I don't like. What about?
No, yeah. I would say speaking personally,
Steph Curry.
This person made me aware of a dance that I had not been aware of at the time. How about that?
And it's pop culture and college. I'm screwed.
A little bit. All right. Clue number 2. I was the first ever Kentucky Wildcat to be selected number 1 overall.
I should just take a stab at a Kentucky Wildcat. Anthony Davis wasn't selected first overall. Why don't I have this? First Kentucky Wildcat, so it's not. This is not Towns. Shit, I don't know. Keep going.
Clue number 3, my Kentucky Wildcats set a record with 5 first-round picks in the same draft the year I was selected, led by me.
Is this Karl-Anthony Towns?
It is not. So it's a number 1 overall pick from Kentucky before him. I don't think I could name. Maybe I could name them all. I don't think so.
Who went number 1? I should have this one already. I feel like I remember the other guys who are on that team, which puts the date around what though? I think you're gonna have. I guess keep going.
You will get this one. Not necessarily this clue because I didn't know this. Number 4, the team that drafted me was considered a controversial team to get the first pick, as many thought they'd been awarded the top pick after their owner had passed away during the season. I have no recollection of that.
I don't remember this slant at all.
Okay, yeah. I wouldn't focus on that one. Disregard that clue. It's going to throw you off.
Hit me with clue 4.
Clue 5. I was named to the first team All Rookie after averaging 16 points and 8 assists.
Oh no! Oh God! This is good. I'm gonna be so mad.
Can I summarize in a way that'll hopefully be helpful? Number 1 pick out of Kentucky, first team All Rookie, 16 and 8. And it's before Towns. That's all you know time wise so far.
Banging my head against my microphone right now. I'm so why don't I know this? 16 and 8. That was rookie season numbers, correct?
Yeah, 16 points, 8 assists. It's a lot of assists for a rookie.
16 points, 8 assists. Yeah, that's just there can't be many who have averaged 8 assists. And I feel but I can't.
This is a great player to pick because it's like he's a big deal, but just not someone you've given a lot of thought to recently.
I think you're gonna have to keep going. This is a
All right.
disaster.
I like your chances still. Clue 6, the team got my running mate 2 years later, and we started consistently making the playoffs, but not being much of a factor when we did. We did sweep a 4 seed along the way, but that was about it.
My team did get. Can you read that one more time?
Okay. The team got my running mate 2 years later, and we started consistently making the playoffs, but not being much of a factor when we did. We did sweep a 4 seed along the way, but that was about it. Don't remember that series, but apt to description as far as like making the playoffs but not doing anything generally.
Got my running mate. I have no idea. Keep going.
All right. This we're getting closer here. You've got 10 clues. This is clue 7. A hyper athlete. Injuries started slowing me down around my age 25 season, and I stopped being able to consistently play.
I'm like, why can't I get this?
You're going to get it on the next one, I think.
All right, I need to throw a name out there, but like, who just went to Kentucky? I feel like I know maybe the year, but now I'm thinking because of the 16-8, I don't, and the running mate thing, I don't even think I know like his teammates. Got my running mate in the playoffs. Never really a playoff threat. Where did Jeff Teague go to school? Is it Jeff Teague?
It's not Jeff Teague. I think he went to like Georgia Tech or something.
Give me the next clue.
All right. I was going to give you an extra clue, but I won't do that. Clue 8. I was traded to Houston in my 10th season for another point guard many had started to give up on.
I was traded to Houston in my age, what season?
10th season.
10th season for a player many had given up on.
For another point guard many had started to give up on. And the wording is another point guard. So you can infer that we're talking about a point guard here.
16-8, that was pretty clear.
Yeah. Just...
So can you read that clue one more time?
I was traded to Houston in my 10th season for another point guard many had started to give up on.
Who else was involved in? I don't have it. What's the last clue?
You got 2 more. Number 9. I was injured for all of my second season in Houston. They ended up paying me $40 million to stay home.
Oh, fuck. John Wall.
God damn Wall. You got it. So you don't remember like when he would come out for intros at Kentucky, he would like do the
now I do the I had that song on my playlist, do the John Wall. I had that song. That is a miss. Oh.
Hey, you got it. Clue 10 would have been I signed with the Clippers 2 years ago to play 40 plus games, but didn't play in the 23-24 season. I'm John Wall.
Who was his running mate that they got?
Beal, I assume, is who he's referring to.
But he didn't go to Kentucky.
No, that's not part of the question.
I got hung up on it. I thought they acquired his running mate from Kentucky. So I was like, what?
I could see that. Yeah, no, it was meant as like they got his running mate with the Wizards. That Kentucky class was Cousins, Wall, was like Patrick Patterson or something.
Is that the Booker draft? That's too early, right?
No, I think it's too early. So Willie Cauley-Stein was with Cat, right? And not Cousins. And
I can't think Tyler Ulis.
Oh man, I don't know. I think I've used up my Kentucky knowledge.
Wait, probably. So John Wall was drafted. What year was that again? John Wall was 2011, right?
No. Was it?
John Wall was 2011. What's wrong? 2010. Sorry.
Okay. I was Cousins and who else?
So DeMarcus Cousins went to Kentucky. Patrick Patterson. I used to be all in on Patrick Patterson. He went. So John Wall number 1, Wesley Johnson number 4. Oh no, wait, he didn't go. He went to Syracuse.
No, that's Syracuse.
Sorry, DMC number 5, Patrick Patterson number 14, Eric Bledsoe 18. That was the name I glommed onto. And then Daniel Orton at number 29.
Big guy.
And then there was another one, number 55, Jeremy Evans. 6 Kentucky players went in that draft.
Wow. Okay. Hey, let me give. Just because he did them. Dan, who's Bill Walton talking about? A phenomenal performance by blank, just pounding the glass. Is he talking about Elton Brand? Kevin Garnett, PJ Brown, Peja Stojakovic, or Fred Hoiberg?
Fred Hoiberg.
That is correct. You've cracked the Bill Walton game.
I have to give you one of the Bill Walton ones. We can
All
save
right.
the other ones, but who is Bill Walton talking about, Grant? Blank, winner of the genetic lottery. Is it Matt Bonner, Amari Stoudemire, Tim Thomas, Ben Gordon, or Ron Artest?
It should be Amari Stoudemire. What was the first name you said?
Matt Bonner.
He's gonna say it's Matt Bonner.
Whenever I read that, I think of Matt Bomber because I used to watch the show White Collar, but it's actually Amari Stoudemire.
Oh, good job, Bill. I got an accurate one.
So
Got anything else?
no, thank you, Mike, for those. That was a nice little return. Like I said, we could try and do these maybe once a week, or if we're just going to exchange 2 each, maybe it could be at the end of each pod. But send them in. I'll create the Discord room before this podcast goes out for your submissions, or maybe I'll wait till after, so it's not people are only Mike knows that guess a player is coming back. So maybe I should wait until the podcast drops. Then the day after, I will make the sub servers for guess a player submissions.
Yes, I would echo those thanks. As usual, everybody, thanks for listening, for watching. Thanks for the contributions, Mike. Again, submit, file them. Like give us some. Those were I think exemplary of the level of difficulty that makes for a good guess a player. Anything easier is
I'm sufficiently like self-loathing right now.
You got them, but you hate yourself a little bit,
Yeah.
which is exactly where you want to be at the end of a guess a player.
You killed it though this time. You had 2 like less than halfway through. You got it.
Just it's kind of like it helps to come in fresh. I don't have any of the stigma of my past failures still bothering me. Rate, review, subscribe. Check us out on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed there. Leave us some comments on this video, as Dan mentioned. Let us know any of our oversights. Praise our successes. Lambast us for our failures. All that good stuff. Join our Discord. Links for that in YouTube and podcast description. That's it. Shouts Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.